Okay, I'm here, folks. My bad. Life was happening. Okay, so let me give you guys a few moments so I can let everybody climb in. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. I just need to write a few last minute notes for our conversation today. So I'm gonna give y'all a minute to jump on. Yeah, I'm late. I know. I know. Man, life has been lifing. It's been a hectic little week and a half, but all is well. You know what I mean? Let me just come back to that. We'll wing it with that part. Yeah, I got a lot of pages to cover today. I don't know if we're gonna get through all of them, but we will try our best. I'm just gonna write a few pieces here and there. Okay, I got that. Okay, we'll be good. Anyway, how's everybody? Let's see. I'm gonna stall for like 2 more minutes to give people a chance to get on since I came on late. I know some folks are like, "Oh, where's he at?" But such is life. Anyway, all is well with me. No major complaints about anything so far. This tea is hot. I'm not even about to try to drink it. I'm gonna burn my mouth in front of everybody. All right. Let me read some of the what's up pieces in here, and then we'll jump right into it, y'all. What up, Alan? What up, CMCB? So Extra Blog, what's up? They've been supporting for a good moment. Shout out to So Extra Blog. Check them out on Instagram. Abby Wise 32, what up? Tyler Hackner, he's been supporting for a really long time too. Eleanor Smith, check out her podcast when you get a chance. Melanated Rose finally made it to one of your live sessions. Yes, welcome. D Bradford. Oh, what up, D? D be supporting for a lot too. Happy Sunday. How am I? I'm good. I'm good. We here. Man. All right. So I'm gonna ease in. What up, Arif-Hassan? Shout out to Liberia. I see y'all in the room. Okay. I don't know if that's Monrovia or not. But shout out to y'all. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with what I said that we needed to come back to from my last in the news, because y'all fought me tooth and nail about my conversation about the theme song. So yes, there were a few that I guess I left out. My bad. There's just so many. Y'all would not let me live down that I did not include A Different World and Living Single. Listen, I agree. Those are great theme songs as well. But man, y'all were not about to let me have it. But yeah, the Living Single one was a great one. If I had to pick my favorite out of the Different World episodes, I know a lot of people are going to say the Aretha, but I really like the season closer. That was either what, Boys and Men or Take 6. I think that was Boys and Men. I really liked that last one. That was a fun one. I like anything with some like New Jack Swing bounce to it, so that was really, really dope. But no, Aretha sounds really good on her version too. Honestly, all of them were good. Even the first season, that one was okay too. I just think the first season as a show was just so dry. It's hard to even enjoy the theme song from that season because the first season was just so dry. Because that's when they still had a team of like writers that knew nothing about HBCU culture or anything, and so they tried to write, what they thought would take place on the campus like that. So that show was very distant in season 1. Amen for Debbie Allen to come in there and regulate and clean things up and make it better. But yeah, y'all were not letting me have it with my 3 choices, which I still think my 3 choices make sense. If you're talking impact, as far as if you go on the street in some random city and start singing it, people most likely will know. And I'd say, yeah, the Jeffersons, Good Times, and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, especially Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But whatever, it's y'all world. I'm just living in it. That's funny. Let me see what we got here. I'm trying to stall a little bit longer. Let everybody get in here. Okay, yeah, see, y'all agree. Like we said, Living Single, some say the Parkers. I forgot about That So Raven. That's a fun show. I think I like the show more than the theme song, because the show, that was a really, really silly show. So it's a good watch when you just want to not be so serious and just relax. I always make fun of one of my old coworkers, because I used to say that episode when they had the episode where Corey and Raven had like pissed off the teacher, and they told their different stories of what happened. And it's that scene where Raven was the substitute teacher, but she was like the mean teacher, and she had the little snacks, and she had that one cookie that she crumpled up, and all the kids had to take a piece of the cookie. I used to say that's how one of my coworkers used to be at work, because she was so frugal, just cheap. She didn't ever want to spend no money on nothing with the kids. I'm like, man. Raven was like, This is all you're getting, so make it last. I was like, yeah, that's us at work. But anyway, somebody said Sanford and Son. I did talk about Sanford and Son. What did I think of? Who is Scissor? Scissor? Is that? Wait, Scissor's new song. Are you talking about Scissor? I think it's Scissor you're talking. I don't know who Scissor's supposed to be, but if it's Scissor, I haven't heard it yet. I've read that it came out Friday. I haven't heard it yet. Oh yeah, the Proud Family. Okay, Proud Family was cool. PJs. I forgot about that one too. I think I said Moesha in the last video. I liked all the renditions of the Moesha one. Oh, that was thank you, Tanika Washington. That's one I skipped. And Living Color. Both of theirs were dope. I don't even know which one out of the two I liked more. I think I might have liked the one that was a bit smoother. Yeah, I think I like the second one a little bit more. I'm trying to think. You can do. I think I like that one a bit more. Yeah. All right. I think we've had enough on the sitcom opening. Somebody said Sister. All right, cool. Yeah, these were all fun. And then somebody was asking me about Halloween. Like, do I dress up? Do I do anything? I'm kind of boring. I'm not a big Halloween person. I do like to see everybody's costumes though. But you know what it is? First of all, I'm already dry anyway with the costumes because when I do dress up, I always had the same costume every year. I would just dress up as LL Cool J because it was so easy. You get the big giant chain, you get the little track jacket or whatever, and you get the Kango hat and the glasses and be out the door. And I was doing that for years until my hair got too big and it couldn't fit in the hat anymore. But yeah, I used to stay in the LL Cool J fit. But as a kid, I wasn't allowed to celebrate Halloween, so there wasn't really a connection to it for me by the time I became an adult. Like my mom back in the day did not play. I came up in that era where, depending on how you grew up and what kind of church you went to, Halloween was the most demonic thing ever. So we could never celebrate or have any fun with Halloween. I used to be so pissed. I remember being in like kindergarten, first grade. They'd have the costume parties. All the kids would come in. And that's back when the costumes aren't as good as they are now. Like the kids today got like some dope costumes. When we were kids, like everybody had those plastic, it was like the plastic mask with the little string you snap on in the back and put it on. Like everybody had those kind of costumes. But all the kids would put on their costumes, and Power Rangers was really big at the time. And so my class would have these big, giant, costume parades, and they're just getting it in. Meanwhile, I couldn't participate. So I'd have to go to the buddy room and go sit in another classroom or something. I used to be so pissed about it. Like, this is bull. I used to be mad. And then I couldn't even trick or treat. Like, I think I said the first time I went trick or treating was like middle school. But no, I couldn't trick or treat. Then if it was Halloween, like half the time we went to church anyway. And I used to be annoyed because I think we'd leave for church at like 6:30 or 7. And I think trick or treating in Washington, or at least in Spanaway, used to start as soon as the sun went down. And so they tell you if you're in a house, they tell you, oh, turn off the porch lights. And that way people know not to come to your door if you don't celebrate Halloween or you don't do trick-or-treating. And my mom back in the day, I'm not turning off no light. I ain't letting no devil dim my joy. I'm like, oh my God, Mom, okay. And so there would be kids that would come to the door and, they want the candy on my mom. Like, we don't celebrate Halloween. I could go tell them we don't celebrate. And then it'd be like your friends coming to the door. And they, Michael, you coming out? It's like, I can't come, guys. Sorry, I can't come. But then we'd have to go to church. And then we used to go to this one church. I don't even think that church exists anymore, but they used to be so intense. Like, some churches do like a harvest night where the kids can still get candy, or they do like the cake walks and play games, and they'll still have a good time. That way they make sure the kids still get to have fun like the other kids that they go to school with. Not this church we went to for like a year or two. Like this church, the lady, I guess the head first lady, she was like, nope, we ain't letting in no room for the devil. And so the only thing, we didn't even get candy. We just got Jello. Like we had to watch, I don't remember what the movie was. It was some kind of like Christian VHS tape they put in. And all we got was Jello. Like some Jello and some kind of punch. I think that, and that was it. I was like, this is some bull, man. I used to be so mad. Fortunately, my mom loosened up years down the line. Now, my little brother swears he had it tougher than me, but he had it so much better because he actually got the trick or treat. Like my mom was letting him trick or treat when he was like 5 or 6. And I think I told this in the podcast episode before, but I remember you know, she let him trick or treat. She forgot to get him a costume because, of course, when the younger siblings get everything, the older sibling, you just get the worst of luck because that's your parents' test trial with parenting. So they get it right by the time they're done with you. So the younger brother got the works when it came to all the holidays and everything. And so my mom forgot to get him a costume. And so what she did was she literally like just got like her makeup thing and like drew some like whiskers on his face, and then she got like one of her wigs and threw it on him and sent him out the door. And so he was supposed to be a lion, but everybody thought he was James Brown. And so he went with the flow, but he came back with like a whole backpack full of candy. I was like, the way y'all just got it made. Like, do you know, I used to leave those little church parties with nothing, because it's not like you take Jello home to go or the punch to go home. So we ended up like leaving that church and we went to a different church, and that church was a bit more lenient and a lot more fun. Like they would do like the cakewalks and the candy and the parties and stuff like that. So that church I enjoyed as a kid. But yeah, I was never really big on Halloween as a kid. Well, I wanted to be, I just wasn't allowed to celebrate. So by the time I became a teenager, I didn't really care the same way. So as an adult, it's like, all right, now I'm just getting older, so I don't even like being outside anyway. I'd be ready to go home. Like me and one of my good friends were out yesterday, and it was so funny because like I just hosted an event, this fundraiser for like a company, and then you know we went and grabbed some food, and I think it was 9:58, and we were so tired. I was like, dang, you know, it's only 9:58, and we acting like it's bedtime. Like I think I was in bed by like 10:45 last night. Anyway, yeah, so I didn't have the best of Halloween experiences until I was like 20. Yeah, I think the first time I ever wore a costume for Halloween, I was 24, maybe 25, something like that. Oh, by the way, also, while we're on it, so I think I told that story in one of my podcast episodes, but speaking of the podcast, because I'm going to keep milking this until we finish filming. Like I said, if you don't know, we're shooting a short film for the Comedically Hardheaded podcast. We actually start shooting on November 18th over in LA. And so we are actually fundraising for the project because, of course, you know, all this stuff costs money. And so I have the link to the Indiegogo campaign right on this video, but you can go donate and support. I think there's like 4 more days left on the campaign. So if you'd like to support, or if you really enjoyed all of those podcast episodes, definitely support us. We would love it. By the way, there's also a new series I finally started that it was supposed to actually come out yesterday, but life happened and I did not get home in time from the event. So I'll put that up later this week. But the new series is all about my work with kids, because people keep asking, can you talk more about the kids and stuff? And because I was still working there, I couldn't tell all the good stories. Now I can, even though I'm gonna have to walk on eggshells, because I think they're recruiting me to join the board, which I'm actually considering to do. Like I already volunteer at my center still. Like I'm with the kids bi-weekly on Thursdays, and I just went through the process of all those letters of recommendation for the seniors that are applying to school. Man, let me tell you, it's great that the kids love you and that they trust that you write all that, but dang, when you get like a plethora of, hey, Mr. Michael, can you do my letter of recommendation? Yeah. And then of course I tell them all, make sure you give me like a good window of time, because y'all aren't gonna be the only ones asking. And of course they all want to wait till the last minute. It's due on the 1st of November. Yo, it's October 20th. Okay, all right. Y'all better be happy I love y'all. Otherwise I'd have to y'all letters. But yeah, going through the letters and also reading and helping to edit everybody's admission essays and stuff. So I've been kind of busy, but yeah, so like I was saying, we're really excited to shoot the podcast episode. And like I said, it's the episode Pull Over So I Can Hit You. That's the one where my family thought it was a great idea for the whole family to ride in the car as I was learning to drive. And that was the most chaotic experience ever. If you have not heard that episode, just go listen to all of them, because they all funny, right? If you want to get to know me, you can get to know me through the podcast. That tells you everything you need to know. Anyway, let me pause for a second and read a few comments before we jump into some of the more serious topics, because, man, the world is crazy, ain't it? Folks out here losing their minds. And then as a person who makes content, it's a headache, because then they want you to talk about all of it. Anyway, all right, let me read these comments. I know y'all about to fry up the church on these. I'm not trying to start a war tonight, all right? Somebody said, no one has holiday plans. Neither do I. I don't even have holiday plans for Thanksgiving or Christmas right now either. I'm probably just going to kind of lay low. My mom is about to come visit me in November for a little bit after Thanksgiving, but I'm going to lay low for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm not really doing that much. I'll probably go visit my goddaughter or something. Oh, somebody said, yes, giving 1 crumb per kid, Ayanish. That's a Raven episode. That's like one of the funniest episodes, because it's just so goofy. That and the Liz Anya, when her dad gets fired and she pretends to be the big celebrity and goes to the restaurant and just raises hell in there. That's a hilarious episode. All right. What up, Tiffany? Oh, that's my cousin. Just silly me. She said, "What was that? Was that? See, was with your mom today, singing at her church. See, I don't be lying. People be thinking I be making these stories up. It's true. Okay, just kidding. But shout out to my cousin Tiffany. Man, all right. Let me see. Oh, y'all still talking about the theme songs? Yeah, I did like the Caribbean style opener for Cosby as well. Raywin said, Calvin, did you get your copy of Janet's Velvet Rope Anniversary album? I did not. I'll get it at some point, but I mean, I already had all the songs anyway. It's because it's like a re-release for the 25th anniversary, has some remixes and stuff, but I already had all of those, so I'll get it at some point. But right now, because I'm funding a whole short film, which you all should go and support, since I self-fund all of my projects except this one, I had to cut back on what I'm spending on temporarily, even though I still went out to eat last night. Because food, you got to be able to eat. Let's see. Somebody said I was going to dress up as Usher Confessions era, but the coins were not hitting, so maybe next year. I feel like that's kind of easy to do because Usher Confessions era is you just wear some black, like a black jacket, a white t-shirt, maybe a chain, and like some white Air Force Ones. That's Usher's. I said this in my So What Happened series. I said that when I talked about Usher's imaging and how a lot of his eras sometimes, as far as the staging or what the imaging looked like with clothes, kind of all mirrored each other between 8701 and Here I Stand. So yeah, that's an easy one to do, I think. Soulman, he said he has Kojic trauma. Yes, I do. That's exactly what was happening. Man. Nafisha said, same. I grew up Muslim. Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of us have that experience of, I don't know if it's the same way as far as parents being as strict about Halloween, but it seems like in my generation, we might have been one of those last generations where Halloween was not an option. Like, no, absolutely not. Keefa said the plastic costumes were lit. I'm glad somebody remembered. Like, they really used to have, like, it would be the mask that you just put. It was like a plastic mask with the eyes cut out. The mouth was also closed off, so the mask couldn't talk or nothing. And it would have that white little string that was elastic that was just snap on, and then you just go out the door with the rest of the costume. Yeah, life was very simple at the time. And I think the only costume that didn't have that was like the Power Rangers one. I think they had a different kind of helmet thing you could wear, so they actually had like a real costume. That's why everybody wanted to be a Power Ranger at the time, because Power Rangers came out when I was in kindergarten, so it was the wave when I was still in first grade. All right. Gold Dust for Life said, don't nobody want no Jello, and keep those candy corns too. I told y'all give candy corn a lot of smoke, but I still think the nastiest candy in addition to candy corn is what's the peanuts thing. What's those orange, yellow, what are those called? Peanut candy. What are those things called? You know what I'm talking about? Those nasty orange. What are these called? What are these things called? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Is it circus peanuts? Those really marshmallow orange, just nasty circus peanuts. Yeah, those things are nasty. That's the nastiest candy. I would rather eat the black jelly beans any day than that crap. Somebody said, what does my shirt say? Oh, it just says all of the different little shows, not little, but all the different shows we have on the channel. So What Happened, my R&B is Dead series, which I think I'm about to retire, my music reviews in the news, Let's Go Live, which is what we're doing now. One of our subscribers, biggest supporter, Jason made this shirt. I'll tell y'all about some merch related stuff after the new year, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna shift a few things. So yeah, the R&B is Dead. I'm gonna retire and shift into a different series around music, just because the title alone is starting too many fights and arguments. Folks getting on my nerves. We already know R&B is not dead, but we're having a conversation about music. But anyway, Tyler said, I'm glad my parents weren't like that, and be happy. Now, me and my mom can laugh about it now. My mom is like the funnest person in the world now, but I'm just like, I wish you were like that when I was a kid. Like, man. Yeah, candy corn is nasty. Sorry. Circus peanuts. See, y'all know what I'm talking about. Somebody said peeps are disgusting. They're they're not my favorite either. I'd still prefer to eat the Peeps, those marshmallow duck things sometimes that even have little sugar sprinkles. I'd even eat that over the candy corn and the circus peanuts any day. But I feel like the Peeps, you can only eat one or two and then your stomach start hurting. All right. Let's get to some serious stuff because I think we've had a lot of fun. I just wanted to start with some good energy before we get into the foolery because I got a lot to cover. I'm mad because I did not get to go over all my notes before we got on live because I was already running late. So we are going to work this out together because we are one big family. So let's start with Paul Pelosi. All right. Oh, hold on. Pause 1 second. Somebody said, did your mom get married yet? Haven't heard you speak about it lately. No, she's engaged. But you know what? And I'm really happy for her. She's at an age where I can see her being engaged for like 8 years before she chooses to get married. Like her and her fiance, they work out. I like him. He's good people with me. And so they haven't set a wedding date, but also they got engaged right before COVID showed up. So I think that played a role, but she'll get married in her own time when she's ready. I think she's enjoying life. They're enjoying each other, which is pretty dope. So good for them. You know what I mean? I was just saying, as one of our subscribers, sadly, their father just died last week. So I was talking to them about stuff, and I was saying like the hardest experience with losing a parent, I think, at least in my case, is you want to get to your new normal as soon as possible, really, because it's already painful to lose a parent, but then when you have to see the other parent grieve, that just cuts you so deep. Like that's the worst feeling in the world. And so when my father passed, I wasn't even as sad as I could have been because I was so sad for my mom. I just felt bad because I mean they were together for like 30 plus years. I mean they go back to the military years, and we had lived all around the world and everything. And I think the saddest part about it, because my father died from scleroderma. And what that specific condition does is it pretty much attacks all your organs. And by the time he died, his lungs had hardened, right? So even with him passing, I don't even know if he had a very peaceful death because it seems like he might have suffocated to death. We never got the full autopsy just because, my mom and my brother were in the house when it happened. I was over here in DC at the club when it happened. But having to see her deal with it, that's a hard feeling. So I remember like when everything, and I have a podcast episode about this, so check it out. But I had her come back to DC with me for like a month after thank you, Deborah Burrow. I had her come back to DC with me for a month just because I didn't want her to be at the house by herself because my brother at the time was stationed in Hawaii. So she was by herself in that whole house. And it's hard to like be in the same space where all the good memories are because our house was a loud house. Like there was always something going on in the house. So for all that noise to disappear and the kids have moved on and become adults and now, the love of your life is going. That's tough. And I think the saddest part was he was due for a lung transplant that November. And so he died in July. He just had to make it to November, but time said, sorry, time's up. And so I think that was one of the parts that got to everybody. So I'm really happy that she's found somebody. He's good, folks. And I like that he can cook very well. He makes a really good jerk pork. I know I'm trying to give up the pork, but dang it, he made that crap on the grill. I was like, freak. I was about to say a different word. It's like, all right, my anti-pork journey has just been extended because I almost had made it, y'all. I gave up bacon and then I gave it all up. Now I went to Atlanta to visit my mama and that stuff was smelling good on the grill. I said, just a little piece. Damn, let me load that plate up. So he's good with me. Anyway, I'm supposed to be on the supposed to be talking about some serious stuff. All right. Okay. Let us actually get to our actual topic. So, didn't mean to kill the mood here. I wasn't trying to make this all sad, but whatever. Oh, there's a troll in the chat. Oh, let him hang around. I'm monetized, so it just gives you more money. You can fund my project. Great. Anyway, so Paul Pelosi. As we've seen in the news, somebody went and broke into Nancy Pelosi's house over in San Francisco. Some crazy person went up in there. I mean, they kicked the door in. They had zip ties, duct tape. They were ready to do the whole show. They were about to do the works, right? Now, Nancy was not there because I believe she was actually in DC or she was somewhere else. But Paul was still at the house, which is her husband. Now, mind you, both of them are like in their 80s. You know what I mean? Like they are way up there. But I guess homeboy was like, no, I'm coming over there. And he was looking for Nancy. That's who he wanted to get to. And, I guess he and the husband got into some kind of, well, clearly you come into somebody's house, they're going to fight you. And so the husband and the intruder are going back and forth with this fighting. And the intruder has beat this man in the head with a hammer. Like, this is some real gory Netflix thriller movie type stuff, right? Now, fortunately, Paul Pelosi did not get killed. You know, the police were able to get there because he was able to call 911 when the police came. Did I read any of the details? I think let me see, just because I don't want to make sure I'm telling the story wrong. Let me see, I just want to make sure. Police have said that DePape, I guess that's his name, entered the home through a back door, and it wasn't clear if he circumvented any security measures. Paul Pelosi was able to call 911 at the start of the attack. A law enforcement source and other source familiar with the matter previously said he managed to keep the line open and the dispatcher could hear a conversation in the background. Let me see. San Francisco police entered the room at 2:27 a.m., 5:27 on the East Coast, to find Pelosi struggling over a hammer with DePape. According to the city's police chief, officers saw DePape, I don't know this man's name, violently assault Pelosi with a hammer before they tackled him down to the ground and arrested him. I mean, clearly, if you already got the call that somebody's in the house and you see the intruder, you're going to wait for him to keep hitting him in the head before y'all go and stop him? Kind of nonsense. But to get to a more serious point, because first of all, this is all wild and crazy anyway, but I think this is what happens when, I've already said American politics is very tribal right now. And in the United States, our politics goes through different waves, right? The waves go through different layers of extremities every season, every election era. Sometimes they're more extreme than others. But I will say, this is a result of, in my opinion, not making an example out of people who have already done a lot of really atrocious things in the last few years. Like, I think in regards to even January 6th, the fact that there haven't been a lot of people who've been made an example out of, this kind of empowers people to continue to do what it is that they do because they feel like they're going to be all right. You know what I mean? And I think, and this is not even just that, because then think about some of the other examples of the things we've seen. So even with the governor of Detroit, where they had the whole, or not Detroit, governor of Michigan, where they had the entire plot to kidnap her. You know, they were going to blow up a whole bridge to make sure nobody could escape and get out, and had all this tactical gear and equipment and stuff that they didn't order. And they were ready to do some serious business. And then even when it went to trial, now a lot of them have been convicted, but there were some that were like, that were not convicted on some of the minor charges, but some of the bigger ones they were still convicted on. But just understand, like, examples have not been made of a lot of the people who've done some of these crazy things. And so they feel that they're empowered. They recognize that maybe there's a system that will back them, they will be protected. You know what I mean? And the other issue is that our media gives platforms to a lot of people who spew out a lot of information that kind of stirs the pot. You know what I mean? Think about even when Trump was running. And this is not to say this is all Trump's fault, because we can be here all day about how many movements and things have taken place and how many people are, you know, influential. It ain't just Trump. But think about when he started his initial campaign back in 2015. Think about how literally every news media outlet showcased every single rally. It didn't matter where he could be, all the way in Nebraska, he could be in California, he could be in Maine, Vermont, didn't matter. They were going to show him at the rally. And you started seeing it so much, you started to recognize the people in the crowd. So kind of think of like the black dude with the two braids that wears the Blacks for Trump shirt. Like, you started recognizing him at every sip. Oh, there you go. Oh, he must be sick today. I don't see him in the crowd. Like, literally. And so you have to think about when you have individuals that carry influence and they're spewing out whatever message they want to spew out, it's easy to pull in people that are highly impressionable, or people that are vulnerable, or people that feel like they want to belong to something because they're frustrated about something else, right? And so you even saw our news media outlets kind of shift, right? Look at what's happening even with CNN, how CNN, you've seen the leadership shift. CNN is going a little bit more to the right because they're trying to be inclusive of everyone, when really in reality, if we want to go there, it's a conversation of ratings. Understand that literally every news media outlet had sky high ratings after you know who got in the office, right? Because we were not living in a normal time where people were playing the political game anymore. The one thing I will say about Trump and all of his foolery is that you knew what you were getting. And because he was also kind of somebody that was sporadic, you never knew what he was going to say at some of these events, some of these speeches, whatever. And so it brought out shock factor. And people are attracted to chaos. People are attracted to something that's going to keep the stories running. So think about, like, understand, before somebody like Trump got in there, the presidency was something that was boring. You know what I mean? Everybody plays into the different roles. Everybody's politically correct. Everybody's worried about keeping the positive impressions. That's why you even had like a Michelle go and say, you know, well, when they go low, we go high, because that's the narrative that we had always had as a, well, I'm saying, when I say we, understand it ain't me, it ain't y'all, but it's the American perspective of what's presented as, collective thought. That's what I'm saying when I say we. So please don't misconstrue that with that being you or myself or whoever. But anyway, that was kind of the move that was pushed in regards to our politics. You go back to like the 60s. What was the highest honor you could be in this country? It would be the president. Today, that is not the case. That's who you don't want to be, because you're going to catch a lot of smoke, right? And so our politics was dry. Our politics was very stoic, right? Especially before the 80s, right? Before you had, or even the 90s, before you had pop culture kind of get immersed into our politics, you had things like MTV Rock the Vote and all these different movements that kind of started to lean more into celebrity to kind of get the younger voters. Like, understand, our politics was very stoic. So now here we have this person that's running, who he's not playing by the rules because he could care less. It is what it is. You're going to get what you get. And so, boom, you have all of these different networks, and they're like, even though we hate everything this man is saying, what he is saying or what he's pushing out there is starting all these different movements and everything else. And yeah, some of this might not be the best thing to kind of stir up, but the ratings are good. And so you watch all of our media outlets buy into all of this. Like, I'll be honest, like, our media right now would love for Republicans to take both the House and the Senate, and they wouldn't mind if DeSantis or Trump were elected, because it means it's going to be another 4 years of all kind of crazy stories where their ratings are going to be up. Like, as much as they would like to try to paint Joe Biden to be whatever Joe Biden is boring. He's not newsworthy compared to what Trump had going. You watch the first, and this is not an endorsement of Trump, so please don't be fooled. But you watch that first debate where you had Megyn Kelly, and she's like, Donald Trump, you've called women, blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, correction, that was Rosie O'Donnell. And then the whole crowd starts laughing. Right then I knew, I was like, oh, we are in for it. Because once you open a can of worms, you can't close it back. They ain't getting back in there, and you can't seal it. So that's where we're at, right? And I remember I was watching one of the debates, and it was Trump versus what's the stupid one from Kentucky? His dad was a politician, and now he got beat up by the neighbor. Who am I thinking of? Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's from Kentucky, not McConnell, but dang, man. Let me read the chat. I know somebody got it. It's the stupid guy from Kentucky. Rand Paul. Thank you. Rand Paul, right? Two of them are going at it. Did I tell you that time Rand Paul went to Howard University that time and going to try to talk to the students like they're stupid, talking about, I bet you guys didn't know Martin Luther King was Republican. And I was like, well, you going to go to one of these higher institutions of learning where black people go and just assume we just stupid, like you're going to teach us something we don't already know, whatever. Anyway, but Trump and Rand Paul are at this debate, and Trump went out of nowhere and was like, you know what, Rand? No one likes you. You're a loser. And that's why you keep moving further and further to the right of the stage. You're almost off the stage at this point. I'm just like, damn. Okay, this man is frying these people up. So again, the pendulum has shifted in our media, right? And so we're in a space where the media will put anything out there if it's going to bring ratings, even if it goes to highly impressionable people who may not also be as, what you would say, politically astute or educated, all right? And that's how we even saw the thing, like, and in addition to that, social media exists, right? And people can say any and everything and put it out there and pass it off as truth. And if you can present it in a way where people will believe it and you can gain enough of a following, people get behind it. So that's how we got into the whole QAnon thing and Pizzagate, where you had somebody literally come all the way to DC, with a gun, showed up to the pizza shop because he was really convinced that there was a basement under the pizza shop with kids that were being trafficked. So, this is where we're at, right? And the crazy part is, as our media continue to kind of shift and latch into some of these things so that they could get their ratings, and because they were racking up the millions, they try to change the narrative and paint it as a both sides conversation. And what did they end up doing? They tried to equate things like white nationalism, white supremacy, all of this violence towards other groups of people, and then try to equate it with the calls for an end to police brutality and say, oh, both sides, and the BLM folks, and somehow the other side turned into a BLM, Antifa, communist, socialist, black identity extremist umbrella of crazy that's so violent. And so, like both sides, if we just have to come together because everything is just so divisive. And I'm like, what world are y'all living in? Okay, if y'all say so. And so it's just like we're in a space where there's a lot of nonsense. And so as you continue to have those kind of things, we're only going to keep seeing more of these actions. And the crazy part about it is a lot of these seasoned politicians that have been there for a minute, those like a Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, McConnell, like a lot of these folks don't even buy into any of these conspiracies, but they know that they can play on the stupidity of others to gain, further progress into whatever it is that they want to do politically. But now the dangerous turf is now that we have people who are now coming into power, who are running solely on those beliefs, running solely on the idea of replacement theory, or that the election was stolen in 2020, because all of a sudden millions of people were willing to risk their livelihood to cheat so Joe Biden could win, of all people, when he wasn't even a candidate anybody wanted. He was the candidate people settled for because they realized in America, you're going to have to get somebody that middle white America is comfortable voting for, because anybody else that goes against the grain or too far against the status quo is not going to be good enough for middle white America. So the fact that, you know, Joe Biden of all people was the choice, like, please, nobody was taking a charge for no freaking Joe Biden. And but anyway, so yeah, and so you kind of had that. So a lot of these older seasoned politicians that have been there played into that game and stirred it up. And now this is where we get the Marjorie Taylor Greens. This is where we get the Lauren Boeberts, all these lunatics that are coming out here just saying any and everything. I was just reading about a candidate that's running in New Hampshire. Let me read the quote of what he had literally just said at one of his rallies, because this is what he's telling the people. All right, now this is a conversation, and it kind of stirs from the conversation around how people are choosing to identify. That's another conversation. I'm not jumping into it, but this was his response. And now he's talking about something that's happening in the schools, right? He's saying, oh, they're putting litter boxes, right? Litter boxes for that. These are the same people that are concerned about spreading germs, yet they let children lick themselves and then touch everything, and they're starting to lick each other. Now, this was because there was some kind of rumor going around that there was a school in wherever where the kids identified as cats. And so he ran with that and had a whole campaign platform about it. Like, these are the lunatics that you have now running for office and have viable chances at winning. All right. So we're in a space where it's absolutely crazy. And don't be fooled. They've always used fear mongering in every election. Like, even if you go back and you watch the 2012 debates when it was Paul Ryan and Joe Biden, like, if you remember Paul Ryan, if you would have listened to what he said, you would have thought that America was about to burn and the socialists were coming to come and take your jobs and everything else. And we're just gonna be out of control, you know, because if you can get people to be afraid, yeah, you can get them to do anything, right? And so it was pretty much an S-word show. One of the things that I found interesting too, I found this quote, and I'm glad somebody had it, so I wasn't the only one saying this, but it's really easy to get people to buy into nonsense, and there's 4 deciding factors. So when you look at what happened with Paul Pelosi, let's just pay attention to the deciding factors. Number 1, all right, globally, 4 factors elevate the risk of election-related violence, whether carried out directly by a political party, through state security, or armed party youth wings, outsourced to militias or gangs. Number 1, a highly competitive election that could shift the balance of power. Check 1. Number 2, partisan division based on identity. Boom. Check 2. 3, electoral rules that enable winning by exploiting identity cleavages. Check 3. And number 4, weak institutional constraints on violence, particularly security sector bias toward one group, leading perpetrators to believe they will not be held accountable for their violence. If I could check that like 9 times, all 4 of those elements are there, right? And so, like I said, that's what you're seeing in regards to what happened with Paul Pelosi and the dude coming in there. He was really going after Nancy. And so you got to think about it. So going back to what I said, because they did not make an example out of the people back on January 6th, and so many people got away with that, or even if they were convicted, they got, maybe 2 months in jail. Remember the one lady who was like, oh, I'm excited to go because, the food's not going to be great, so I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be able to get into these different outfits, and I'm just going to go and just, nobody took it seriously. So, yeah, there's a handful of people that were sentenced to, 7 years and this, that, and the third. And those are really like the most extreme people. But a lot of folks who did a lot of things got off. And everybody's like, oh, well, nothing happened to them. Cool. Or even when you think about what happened with Charlottesville. Is there another? I have another piece in here I'm supposed to write about something, and I just totally forgot about it. But whatever. So even when you talk about Charlottesville 2017, look at how our media told what happened in that instance, right? So something that went from a hate rally to, Jews will not replace us and blood and soil and all this other stuff, and somebody then got hit by a car. And what did they say? Oh, well, it was the Antifa people out there stirring. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? We just watched somebody drive over people in the crowd. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, the media said, well, we're going to go ahead and play into it because, yeah, we need our ratings to be up. And so we soon learned that those were very fine people and blah, 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 and everything else. And then here we are. And so you have all these moments where different things stir up and help to change the narrative. And at the same time, we had this entire rise of the anti-police brutality movements, right? Starting really, it kind of spearheads after Trayvon Martin, which is not really a police brutality conversation, but it is a conversation of anti-blackness and the attack on black men, black youth, black women, black children. But as we started to see the Freddie Grays and the Mike Browns and the Terrence Crutchers and the Philando Castiles and there's so many, I can't even think of them all, and Sandra Bland and Ayanna That's the little girl that got killed when they were shooting the first 48. And they stormed in the house and shot her while she was in the bed. All of these different people and everything like that. And of course, the conversations around the uprisings and the frustration in regards to police violence, they tried to paint it as, oh, it's, radical, the radical left, radical black identity extremists who are trying to destroy America and bring in the socialists or whatever else it's a cycle, right? And we're living through it. And so one question I do have, as this is almost a sidebar, I'm trying to figure out what kind of security they had at the house. Like, what y'all doing? I'm so confused because, like, will somebody sleep? Because the thing is, it's Nancy Pelosi's house. Whether you like her or not, she is like, what, second in line to the president, president, vice, and then her. So it's like, you would think there would be better security at the house, right? Because I'm like, even some of these federal buildings here in DC got better security than what was happening at Nancy's house. Because I think back to, thank you, somebody got it. Ayanna Stanley Jones. Thank you, Queen. That's the little girl I was talking about in Detroit. But I mean, I remember, I always got a sidebar story, but I remember I went to the African American Museum of History and Culture. Like, this is 2017, right? And I could not find parking. Just know, if you ever come to DC, once you go by the monuments, you're not gonna find parking. Just Uber or take the metro. Anyway, I decided I'm gonna drive because it was like 10 degrees outside. It was freaking freezing outside. So there was a parking garage nearby. I'm like, oh, I'll just go to the parking garage. I forgot it was a federal building. So I had to get checked. The car had to get checked. It took like 6 or 7 minutes to get into the garage. Cool. Go to the museum, have a good time. Go to all the floors because, it's like 5, 6, 7 floors in there. I'm looking at all the historical pieces of this and the Jim Crow this and what happened in the 70s and what happened in sports and pop culture. Had a great time. Stayed till the museum closed. And so this is where I messed up. I go back to my car, which is at that parking lot. I wasn't the only person that parked there, right? And so literally I had to stand in line on the sidewalk outside for about an hour and 50 minutes, freezing in 10-degree weather, before I could get to my car because they had to check anybody who wanted to go back to their car, they had to get checked just to get in. Long story short, I did not feel good the next day and went to the hospital. And I went to the hospital. That's when I had walking pneumonia. I didn't even know I had it the whole time. And I had a partially collapsed lung. And then on further research, that's when I told you guys that I had all those polyps in my lungs. Like, after I had the whole collapsed lung and the pneumonia bit, I had to keep doing the follow-ups. And so when I kept doing the follow-ups, they kept finding all the polyps in my lungs up until about January of 2020. Fortunately, apparently everything is good now, but I still have to follow up. But back to my main point. It's just absolutely crazy that, we're in a space where you can see the extremities of what happens when you constantly throw out misinformation to people on purpose, all because either you're trying to climb up or you're trying to gain influence or you're trying to do whatever, because people have lost it, honestly, And I'll say that environment of what we're seeing now has been there for years. It hasn't just started with what we've seen in modern times. Some people say, oh, this is the worst of times. I don't even think it's the worst of times. I just think this is reflective of how America has always been every single time. So we're going to go back because, I love to tell a historic, standpoint. So think back to even like when we talk about Birth of a Nation, the movie, right? So Birth of a Nation drops in 1915, right? And this is a movie about the Klan, and it paints the Klan to be this big, heroic group of like superheroes, right? They go and they protect the white women from being raped by the angry, crazy black people, right? And so the crazy part about it was, now the filmmaker was this guy named Thomas Dixon, who actually was friends with Woodrow Wilson, who was president at the time, right? So this is how this film ended up being screened at the White House. And remember, the very first movie to ever be played at the White House on like a big screen was Birth of a Nation. And this is because, again, Woodrow Wilson had the connection with Thomas Dixon, who was the friend of the president, right? And Woodrow Wilson, the quote that he had about the movie afterwards, because again, this was a big deal. This was a huge premiere when it came out, and on top of that, there were protests about it. Like the local NAACP chapters already knew what this movie was going to be about. So they were already protesting about it, but there was so much happening in America at the time, which we're going to get to. But anyway, after Woodrow Wilson sees the film, he says, "It's like writing history with lightning. And my only regret is that all of it is so terribly true." All right. Doesn't that seem reflective of what we have now, where you have politicians that literally lie, and you can literally fact check them and they will still lie and run with it because they know people will get behind them and people will still back them. And so this is how we got into the whole thing about Dominion. Even when you talk about the 2020 election and the Dominion voting machines were rigged and they had all this software and everything. And so all of a sudden there's all these town halls with these politicians, and all the people are cussing them out about Dominion voting machines, when in real life, none of these people have ever heard of Dominion anything, right? And that's where we're at. Same thing with the conversation of Antifa. And even with January 6th, they started spreading it around. Oh, no, it was the Antifa people that actually stormed the Capitol. what would they storm the Capitol for? They would have been happy that Trump didn't win. But, you know, this is just where we're at. So anyway, going back, when you have somebody of that caliber and influence, all right, they're able to push what you call a wave of chaos. And when you think about what's happened, at least in the United States, like we've said, the wave that we're living under right now. So we saw the wave of white nationalism become more popularized. So when I was referencing Charlottesville back in 2017, you know, the reason I brought that up is because, again, racism has never gone anywhere in the United States. It has always been here. However, we had lived in a space, at least since probably the late 1970s, where people kind of kept the racism a little bit more, you know, they kept it in the house. It was kitchen table talk. You know, they'd meet in their special little quiet groups, but they weren't going to be out in the forefront. The minute that whole speech about verifying people was endorsed by you know who, and it kind of set the sign to say, all right, it's a free for all. Everybody go ahead and just do what you want, say how you feel. We're going to end this whole era of being politically correct, right? And so out of nowhere, you just start seeing people come out the woodworks on some BS. All right, so all of a sudden, it's real cool and popular to be anti-Black in public. You know, you can go against all the different communities or religions or whatever. And, you know, we got the Muslim ban because we need to ban all these Muslim countries from coming in until we understand what's happening in America. And there's all these different things taking place, right? And so you have that happen, right? And like we already said, you already had the uprisings in regards to anti-police brutality movements, right? So that's already instilling the fear. Oh, my God, these Black people are out here protesting. I'm scared. They burned down a CVS in Baltimore. Oh, my gosh, my home all the way in Omaha could be next, right? And so you have that wave that starts, right? And then going back to my point, so going back to Woodrow Wilson, he says the movie's super great. And like we said, America at that time already had a lot going on. So I want to tell you about a school called, and they're actually still a school today. I hope I say this right because I always get this name wrong. It's Valparaiso. Wait, hell, let me go to YouTube and get somebody to say it right. I don't want to mess this up. Is it Valparaiso? Valparaiso. That's what I'm calling it. Valparaiso University, whatever it's called. Anyway, right outside of, it's not too far from Chicago, right? So this is a university that opens in 1859, right? And oh my God. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I got to give them a shout out. That's going straight to my funding. Thank you, RO. Hey, Calvin, congratulations on your project. And let's not forget about the theme song for Amen. Amen is a great one. I have to use, I used to have it on repeat. Also, couldn't find out how to join the book club. Okay, I will reference the book club as soon as I finish this, but the book club is always going to be in my community tab. Thank you so much. That's definitely going to help from my project. But getting to what I was saying, so the university, we're just going to call it Valpo for now, right? So Valpo is this university, opens in 1859. By 1905, right? It had one of the largest enrollments in all of the United States out of the private institutions. It was second behind Harvard. So they had an enrollment of about 5,000 at the time. Remember, this is 1907. So we're still a very agricultural country. We're transitioning into industry. So everybody's not really going to college. We're not in a space where you need college to somewhat be able to make it out here. You know, college is still kind of an option. It's more so for people who want to go into what you call the terminal degrees, who want to go into law, who want to become doctors, who want to, you know, get their doctorate, that kind of thing. So a lot of people aren't going to college. It's kind of something that's still more so for the elite, right? So then what ends up happening is they have a 2-decade decline, right? A whole decline, right? They're starting to lose accreditation because, again, the standards in United States education is shifting, where, you know, they're starting to try to get things to be a bit more uniform. And so the university at that point, unfortunately, is falling behind. So they lose accreditation. There was a period where they didn't have a football team. They didn't have Greek life. So people and students were going to the other schools. So they tried to save themselves, start a football team. Football team was terrible. They played Harvard and lost 22-0 and everything else like that. And so one of the reasons why they were struggling is because they lost pretty much all of their international students, because what had happened by 1914, right? We jump into World War I. So a lot of the students that were international were not coming anymore because they had to go and fight for their country, sometimes even against us, right? And so also by the time we get to 1919, now this is after the war, the state of Indiana, where the school is located, they implemented a new rule where any kind of institution, as far as a university or college system, they had to at least be able to sustain a $500,000 endowment. All right, and stay with me. I know this seems like I'm going way off the Richter, but this is all going to come back full circle, so stay with me, right? So $500,000 back in 1919 is the equivalent of $5 million today, right? And at the same time, the university just didn't have it. They were already $350,000 in debt. So in comes a man named D.C. Stevenson. And guess what member or what group he's a part of? The Klan, right? So he is the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan at that time period. And at that point, they had power in 23 states. And so he makes an offer in 1923 to actually go ahead and purchase the school. Like the Klan is going to actually just buy the university. We're going to buy it. Yeah, let's go ahead and buy it. It's great. And at the time, they carried a lot of weight and a lot of power. And especially Stevenson, he had a lot of power in the area because, and the other part, he was able to climb to so much power because people thought he was relatable. All right. He started out as a poor coal dealer, not even a miner. Small loan of $14 million my dad gave me. Oh no, what did Trump say? His dad gave him a small loan of $1 million. This was his small loan of $1 million back in the day. He was a coal dealer, not even a miner. Okay. So he was a step above the coal miners. They were doing the mining. He's doing the deals with the company. So he already had a head up. But he was able to push the narrative that he was one of them and he had struggled and, he was just trying to fight for his country. And so he carried a lot of influence, right? So he was one of the most powerful people in the state of Indiana. He controlled he controlled the government, the gubernatorial election, right? He influenced some of the bills that were taking place, including the bills on steam pollution. He influenced one of the bills in regards to fire insurance. He handpicked the mayor for Indianapolis as far as the candidate that was running at the time. So he had a whole lot of power, right? And what's interesting about the Klan at this point in time is, even though they were still anti-Black at that point in time, they were also anti-immigrant because they were feeling some kind of way about European immigrants coming from Southern and Eastern Europe. Why? Because they didn't look like the other white folks. They had olive skin. Hair was a little bit darker, a little bit browner. So these are the people coming from Greece, Sicily, Turkey, these aren't the people coming from Sweden and, over from Amsterdam and places like that. So they felt some kind of way. And so, the goal was, we're going to go ahead and purchase this university, right? And then what he had said was, and don't worry, guys, I know some of you are nervous about the Klan coming and owning an entire institution of learning, but don't worry, we're not going to change anything. We're just going to be over the trustee board. As a matter of fact, anybody who is, academically credible to come to this institution, we'll let them come, even the Blacks. Now, mind you, Black people weren't allowed to come to the school. So I don't know, they just saying anything. So no, Black people still could not be admitted at the time. It was just like, if you met the academic requirements, you can come on in. All right. So they were saying all of the right things, right? Now, this almost became a reality. They were this close to purchasing the university. They had even put a $1 million offer on the table. The university was struggling. Like I said, they had nothing. They're like, we got to stay open. So I guess money talks. We don't agree with everything they got, but they got the money. So we're going to have to do what we got to do. It sounds like our media right now. But there was one problem. DC Stephenson, he squandered all the money, right? He had a gambling addiction. He spent all his money on women, spent all the money on liquor, bought cars, yachts, all right? And he even ended up in debt, right? So the $1 million that they offered, they couldn't give because now the Klan is also trying to bail him out at the same time, so he's pulling out of the Klan funds to try to fund his lifestyle. And so because of that, the Klan no longer has enough money to purchase this school. In addition to that, Stevenson gets arrested for rape and murder, all right? And so the whole thing falls apart, right? The whole deal is just done. Like, too much going on. And so the moral of all of this is, imagine had they been successful. Imagine had he not squandered the money, had he not killed somebody, what that could have possibly meant for the United States for the next few generations. The idea of an educational institution. Like we said, at this point in time, it was the second most populous private institution in the country, meaning private for the elite, for the wealthy, for the people who make the decisions of what everyone else will follow in regards to who's going to be collateral and who's not. Imagine an institution that was funded and owned by the Klan. And mind you, let's not be fooled. All of these universities from back then already had slaves and everything on the planet, or well, not by then, it's the 1900s. But when we go back to the history of places like Georgetown, which was not Ivy League, but it's still a prestigious school, they had to sell off slaves in order to keep their school open. We understand that slave trade played a huge role into most of the Ivy Leagues as far as Harvard and some of the other institutions. So this isn't anything new, but understand the idea of what would have happened had we had a higher institution of learning where it's pretty much backed by the Klan and Klan ideologies, putting out people into the workforce, into society that are going to make the decisions for everybody else. Imagine how different the country could have been, because that might have just been the model. Because had that have been successful and the university was able to bring in the money and bring in and do everything else, that same formula would have gone to other places, because then other Klan chapters in other states would be like, yeah, let's go ahead and take over this school. Let's take over that one. And then any school that was falling behind in regards to endowment or was in debt, the Klan would have been able to bail them out. Now, fortunately, that wasn't the case. But the question becomes, how did the Klan even get into a space where they had that kind of money to buy an entire university? And it goes back to understanding the climate of where the country was at the time. Like we said, when you talk about fear or anxiety or the stress or the four things that we talked about in regards to people feeling that they can do whatever and there's not going to be any consequences because they feel like somebody has their back, the differences in regards to how we identify culturally. If there's a contested or if it's a crazy election season and the power balance may shift, all those different things play a role. And so when you go back to what was happening at the time, we already had the conversation around immigrants and everything happening, right? So they did not like all these people coming from South and Eastern Europe. And mind you, they had all these other laws. So they were only coming from that area. You weren't allowed to come here from the continent of Africa yet. All right. After slavery ended, they said, there ain't no more of y'all coming over here if you don't want to work. All right. The ones we have, we're going to just make them sharecroppers. So yeah, y'all aren't coming from Africa, which is why you don't really see a large influx of people coming from the continent of Africa until after the Immigration Act back in the 1960s. Right. And then even with that, there's some changes and shifts with how that goes, because then the Clinton administration, they make an amendment to the Immigration Acts in like 1997. And then that's why when you talk about kind of who's here now, you've kind of seen a shift in the different people that are represented in the United States. So like, especially when you talk about the diaspora, you see a lot more people who are now from places like Nigeria or like Ghana or other places in the Caribbean. Up until like the 90s, most of the time, if you saw somebody from the diaspora that was here, they usually were from Jamaica or from Haiti. And so anyway, so the Klan people, white America, they're pissed off about immigration, right? In addition to that, we've had all these race riots. All right, we talked about, I got the book right here, 1919, year of racial, is this focused in the camera? All right, right? Oh, it's upside down. Sorry. All right, 1919, the year of racial violence, right? So that's one of the years where you have all of these uprisings or race riots where angry white people go and burn down black towns. And it didn't just happen in 1919. It was happening before, and it would also happen after. We heard about Tulsa. We heard about all these places. We heard about Rosewood. But 1919 was a year where everything was off the chain. So you had that happening, right? You also had World War I that just wrapped up, 1914 to 1918, right? And a lot of people came back and did not have jobs, stressed out, came back shell-shocked, because that's the war of the trenches, right? Where you had all the people, the troops dig those trenches and stay down in the trenches, sleep there for different nights, and all the bombs are going off, and they get back to America and they're shell-shocked, right? Just so a lot of people weren't eligible to work. And this is before we had social programs. So if you couldn't work, you didn't eat. There's no social security. There's no government assistance. None of that exists yet, all right? We wouldn't get that till after the New Deal. So anyway, in addition to that, you have the Russian Revolution of 1919, right? And so now people are afraid because they think the rise of communism is coming. So how you have these people immigrating in from these different regions. Oh my gosh, they must be communists, and they're going to try and take away our capitalism, right? And so again, you also have the fear that is starting to emerge because our media is becoming a little bit more national, because now we have radio. And so now everybody can kind of hear the same broadcast. So everybody's starting to become more inclined to understand what's happening around the world. And depending on who's presenting the information, it's going to play a role into how things are interpreted and how they're received. And so there's that element of fear. But then it gets deeper, because even with fear doesn't really get a lot of power until it comes into a conversation of livelihood and wealth, right? So then one of the things that took place is people don't understand that, yes, we had the Great Depression after 1929, but understand there were a bunch of recessions and depressions that led to that one. So then we had the Panic of 1910, right? So this lasted for 2 years. Now, this was like a real light recession. It wasn't too bad, but things were getting a little sketchy. So you have the recession of 1910, or the Panic of 1910. Then you have another recession that follows in 1913 that lasts till 1914, right? Right. And that was because of the war that we were still in. We're in the war. Everything's shifting. You got to change different things. We're losing a lot of the men because they have to go across the water. And so all these different industries have to cut back on production. They have to cut back on what they're doing, because they're not even really letting women work yet. They would learn from World War I and say, okay, World War II, we're going to let the women actually work this time. Yeah, we're going to need them because we need the economy to stay afloat. And we also, I guess we can hire some of these black folks. We can hire them, but let's go ahead and make sure we have our unions together so they can't join. They won't get any of the benefits that we got, but we'll make sure that they still at least have a job. But it's going to be like the bottom tier jobs that have no benefits, no anything. And if they die at the coal mine, they just die. So be it, right? Anyway, so you have that happen. The war finally ends. Yay, freedom, America. And then, oh no, there's a post-war recession in 1918 that lasts till 1919, right? And then you also have another depression that comes in 1920 that lasts till 1921. Then there's another depression that comes in 1923 that lasts till 1924. And then there's another depression that comes in 1926 that lasts through 1927. And then, of course, the big Great Depression comes, right? And so all of that period of uncertainty and anxiety has white America just losing their minds, because this is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, and we're losing our jobs, and we're poor, and the rich people are taking everything. But you know what? It's not even our fault. It's the black people's fault. It's the immigrants' fault. It's everything else. And so this is why you get the influx of the Klan, and this is why the Klan ends up having this is the peak years of the Klan. The biggest time period of the Klan would be the 1920s, because so many people were flustered and frustrated, and they felt that they needed to join something. So they joined the Klan because they felt that the Klan would be the group to get the job done. They were going to restore order and straighten things out around here, right? You know, because again, it's easy to influence people when they're concerned, irate, scared, or they are technically hurting. Now, never mind the black folks who got to deal with all the racism and everything else. It's just too bad for us. But for white America, it is the end of the world. And so you have this emergence of the Klan, and they become bigger. Now, mind you, the Klan started in like 1865, but they actually had fallen off until Birth of a Nation came out. Birth of a Nation was like the signal. In the same way Charlottesville was the signal for white nationalism to go ahead and kick the door back open after 2017. That's what Birth of a Nation was in 1915. And it would, keep that energy going. Now, literally, what pretty much would calm the Klan down temporarily would be World War II, right? But then we go right back into the same thing, because after the war, what happens? Now we have the Civil Rights era, right? And so there's so many different things that happen. So even after World War II, and we get all these new programs that are going to go and help the economy, some of the white rage slows down just a little bit, because now they're getting the generational wealth and everything. The New Deal comes out. There's all these programs. There's a GI Bill. The FHA is a thing now. They're getting subsidized loans for housing and everything. So white people have calmed down just a little bit, because life isn't as terrible for them anymore. Everybody else, too damn bad, figured out, boom, here comes the Civil Rights era. All right, Klan membership goes back up because the black people are out of control again. They over here marching, talking about they don't want to sit at the back of the bus. Who do they think they are? I said, you know what? Yeah, some girl named Rose talking about she tired. And so, yeah, Klan enrollment goes back up. So again, everything always works in a cycle, right? Let me pause, because I said a whole lot, and I'd probably let my tea get all lukewarm now. That's okay. Okay, I said a whole lot. Hopefully y'all are able to stay with me. But the point that I'm making in regards to all of this is, when you do not correct the narrative, or you do not correct things that are wrong, and you allow things to just be said and spewed out to the masses with no consequence, these are the things that happen. So now we're in a space where politically things are violent. This is why you have people going to politicians' homes and trying to beat them with a hammer. I'm like, and mind you, Nancy and the husband, I think, are like 80, all right? Like, not to be that person. Father Time is going to do his thing anyway. So it's like, y'all just couldn't wait, not to be rude. And so you got that going. Like we said, you got the people going and trying to kidnap governors. We saw what happened in Oregon, where they took over that whole government territory, as far as, I forgot the guy's name, one of them other crazy folks. And they stand off with the police for days with guns. Like, there's this whole movement where a lot of people in white America swear everybody's out to get them. So yeah, this is when you get the conversations of civil war. We're going to have a war, and we're the warriors, we're the strongest. And this is why when you had January 6th, instead of the people just walking up the stairs to get to, wherever, they want to try to climb the wall, knowing they ain't in shape, and then falling. One guy broke his arm, tried to climb, couldn't make it up, fell back, broke his arm. Now he got to just lay there. It's stupid. So yeah, when you don't correct the wrongs, this is the nonsense that you get, and you're only going to continue to see more of it. Anyway, let me read some comments. Let's see. Oh, I see some white folks in here mad. Y'all will be mad, and it's fine. Okay, Still Rain said she gets a security detail, but I don't think it extends to her family and spouse. That could be true, but I would still think, at least since it's the husband, or at least because it's her house, they would always still have somebody around. Who knows? But I don't know. That's an interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Somebody getting fired. All right, man. Said Nancy needs to retire and enjoy her husband. Look, I already told y'all, I will never for the life of me understand why you would want to be in politics after the age of 70. After 70, you've lived, you've done everything. Enjoy those last 20, 30, God willing years that you have. And then, spend it with family, be happy you're in good health, and enjoy. Who wants the stress of running this country? You know how hard it has to be to run a country of 330 million people who all see everything differently, which is why I got trolls in here who are mad about whatever I'm talking about. But all they can do is probably name call, because they can't fact check anything that I'm saying, because I'm not over here lying. But anyway, because Feinstein in California, man, please retire. Please. Cody Conyer said, I feel like Reagan ushered in the current state of the GOP. I think he ushered in the bootstrap conversation. That's what I've always given Reagan, the smoke with the boot. Like, he was really the one where, well, I guess if you want to say the conversation of how the banks and like insurance companies pretty much run our politics today and corporations, I could say Reagan does that. I agree with that. Yeah. But I really think he pushed the narrative of like the whole pull yourself up by the bootstrap and the welfare queen and all those different things like that. And yeah, if you're not successful, it's because you're not working hard enough. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and cut the school lunch program, let the kids starve a little bit, but they need to just work harder if they want to eat. That was Reagan. And I think the thing with Reagan, though, is Reagan played into respectability politics at the same time. So he'd have all this terrible policy, but then he'd sit there and try to, he's the great orator. You know, and then you look at his whole cabinet. You got freaking Donald Reagan in charge of the freaking Treasury. If you look up Donald Reagan and see how terrible of a person he was. Anyway, let's keep going. Yep, somebody said Tamir Rice. I skipped him. That's the 12-year-old that was shot in 2 seconds for playing with a BB gun at the playground. All right. I'm gonna keep going. Somebody said, how do I spell the college I was talking about? It is spelled Valparaiso. That's that university we were talking about. Gonna keep going. Oh, yes, 2008 B. Scott, exactly. People, please remember that the Klan was normalized in the early to almost mid 1900s. They were not just rural hicks in the South, because that's one of the things people always think it's just some hillbillies. Oh no, these were police, these were doctors, these were people in office. Remember when we talked about if you watched my Kanye video, when we talked about the Liberty City riots and how at one point in time, in order to even be on the police department in Miami, you had to have an association with the Klan, or you could not be on for a time period. So yeah, this stuff is all tied in there. It was all over, and they even had baseball team. Yeah, they had a lot going on. Let me keep going because I got a bit more I want to cover. Somebody said, educate yourself so you can educate your children. I totally agree, Gold Dust for Life. That's one of the things if you follow us, we always say the school is not where education stops. That's just the door that opens. And then you're supposed to go into that door and dig even deeper and you know, really find the things that work. Like, I think I'm going so far off topic, but I really think in regards to education, I've always said life is also a really great education. The more you live, the more places you go, the things and the people that you interact with and meet, it gives you more insight into things outside of just the scope of what you recognize or the bubble that you live in. And so that's why I think like books, documentaries, and just going to different places. Like, one of the things I love about being in DC is like everything is here. Like, if I told myself I'm going to spend like a few days going to like the Library of Congress and looking at some of these different archive files just to dig into some other things. Like, there's so much that you can get out of just different spaces in regards to education. But understand, education does not start and stop with just the classroom or what the teachers are doing. All right. Oh, okay. Girls 89. Oh, that's the porn bots. I don't know why the porn bots always come on my channel. Like, my channel is like, I got like the boring channel. We just talk politics and stuff. You ain't gonna be too much porn over here. And like I said, look, if y'all don't donate to my fundraiser, I'm gonna be on OnlyFans in a minute. So I'll be the only one posting anything around here. All right. Okay, we're gonna keep going. So I'm trying to get to the bottom. Somebody said you need to write a social history narrative. I've been meaning to do some other things. I always do too much, so I'm trying to slow down and really focus on a few things at a time. But that I'm not totally against doing something like that. All right. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. 70. Back up. My dad is 92. That's a great age. And sharp as tack. He would be a great interview for you. You would be amazed. He was a Korean War vet. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine. I just know when I hit, God willing, if I make it to 70, I'm not trying to be in charge of nothing. I just want to live. I want to have like a lake house. I'm gonna go fishing. You know, I'm gonna chill. All the kids and grandkids come to my house, and you know, I'm chilling. I don't want to be in charge of politics because I really feel like if you're not going to be around to live through the end result of the policy that you implemented, then you shouldn't be making the policy because everybody else has to be collateral to it. That's one of the reasons why some of these other politicians that are corrupt, like a Mitch McConnell, has no problem screwing things over because he won't have to really live through any of the consequences. He's so freaking wealthy. You know, it is what it is. And even on the Democrat side, one of the reasons why I kind of side-eye a lot of the older politicians that are still in power is like, y'all need to understand you're going to have to shift and give it to the next generation. Y'all are holding on to things and trying to hold on to an old guard that no longer exists. And this is why every election, y'all always got to fight and you're on the defense. This is why everybody thinks y'all are about to lose both the House and the Senate. Because again, there's that element of relatability that people feel is no longer there. And I think, you know, the challenge that I think exists in politics is it's really hard to get everybody on the same page. You're never going to do it. But you have to find a way to show people that there is leverage in voting for you or there's leverage in getting behind you. But if you constantly play a bunch of silly games, it's hard to get people excited. Now, on the Republican side, because they have whiteness and racism to latch onto, they'll always be able to pull in off of just race because Republicans don't need, as long as they have the white vote, they win. You know what I mean? Republicans don't need the black vote. So No, they don't really put out a black platform. They don't care. It is what it is. Democrats' flaw, in my opinion, is that they try to be the umbrella party. They try to be the party to take care of everybody. And sadly, because they're trying to take care of everybody, everybody only gets small crumbs. And so we're in this space where there's so many issues that are taking place, and crumbs aren't going to do it. And so this is why you don't really see the excitement. And like I've said before, and I'm not trying to be all political tonight, but it is what it is. Like, there's a midterm election coming up, and I've already said this is not the time to tap out politically. But understand, like, a lot of these lunatics that are getting in there, like I said, they're cementing things that they're putting in. This is not the same America of 20 years ago where, yeah, you don't like who's in there, vote them out, and then the next person comes in and undoes it. We can't even get to the space where things are being undone because things are being cemented. So even with this current election, there's going to be a lot of seats that go to Republicans because of gerrymandering. So it is what it is. Anyway, okay, Avocado Queen has given me the correct pronunciation of this school. It is called, I need my glasses. Valparaiso? Look, now I sound like, did I tell you that story that time I went to McDonald's and ordered the parfait, but I didn't know it was called a parfait? Like, my friend was like, oh, go get that, get the parfait for me. He didn't call it a parfait. He just said, get the thing with like the granola and the yogurt. And I never got it before. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went to the McDonald's. I was like, oh, let me get a parfait. And so the lady at the register was like, huh? I was like, a parfait. The parfait, the thing with like the granola, that thing, it's on the picture right there. Now, the lady knew what I was talking about. She just thought it was funny. So she's going to keep having me say this stupid thing. I'm like, the parfait, the parfiat, the farfa something. And then this lady in the line behind me is going to lean up to my ear. It's French. She's going to tell me like it's a French word. I'm like, I don't take French. I was like 15. So I was like, oh, okay. Parfait. I don't know. And then the lady's like, oh, a parfait. I was like, you know what? Okay. Y'all be playing these stupid games. Oh, anyway. I'm like, you can get a parfait. Anyway. Term limits. Mika, I agree. Some people have been in there too long. I understand if the people keep electing them and they're happy for it, but I support the idea of term limits. And I agree with the idea of term limits on the Supreme Court as well. I don't like the idea of lifelong appointments for anything. Because again, the world changes, people change, but sometimes when you're locked into a certain space and you've been given a certain percentage or a certain element of power, it's hard to evolve because you're locked into your own way of doing things. Well, voice drying out. So yeah, I think that's why we have the problems we have with the Supreme Court, right? People locked into the old guard and the old ways of doing things. They want to hold on to certain things, and so it's going to be some nonsense. Oh, that's a good question. Calvin, have you ever done a video on Major League Baseball demographics? Dusty Baker mentioning that this World Series has 0 Black U.S.-born players. It's so disappointing, but expected. No, not really. I don't really talk a lot of sports on this channel. We talk sports on occasion. I'm not a big sports person. I follow a few teams here and there, but it's hard to get into sports right now. I'm just not into them. Like, as a kid, I used to follow everything. Like, when I was a kid, Sean Kemp was my favorite player in the world. I remember crying when the Sonics lost to the Bulls in the playoffs. I took it so personally. I was a huge Mariners fan. I'll always remember they won 116 games and freaking lost to the Rangers and did not get to go to the World Series. And we were already pissed off because the Rangers had A-Rod, who had left our team at the time for $120 million just to leave the Rangers and still go to the New York Yankees. So, yeah, those are like the years when I still follow sports. I don't follow them like that anymore. Oh, and of course, the Seahawks was my favorite football team for a good minute. But right now it's FDNFL, so I don't keep up. All right, I want to get to our next topic. Man, that was a lot. Dang. And then I skipped the part. Did I skip a part? No. Okay. So, where do I want to go? Should I go light or should I keep it with the heavy stuff? All right, I'm gonna go to this story. I'm gonna read the article and then we'll chat. All right. Let me pull it up really quick. Or actually, I'll read some of the article because I don't want to read the whole thing. So this says Davidson County schools will throw away lunches if high school students can't pay. Let's get into it. All right. So it says Davidson County, North Carolina, a revived lunch policy in Davidson County schools has ignited controversy. DCS Director of School Nutrition, said in an email obtained by Fox 8 to cafeteria managers that high schoolers will no longer be allowed to charge in the cafeteria. The change goes into effect Tuesday, November 1st. What that means is that unless students have money in their account or money on hand to pay for the cost of their lunch, the cashier will take their plate away and the student will not be served a meal. If the student is unable to return to the cash register with the money, their meal will be thrown away and wasted, according to the email. Davidson County Schools said the lunch charge policy has been in place since 2011, and the email was sent to let the cafeteria managers know that policy must be enforced. DCS released the following statements, which has not been edited by Fox 8 on the matter. In Davidson County Schools, we take pride in our nutrition service and make it a priority to feed all children. Students who cannot afford meals have an opportunity to apply for free and reduced lunch benefits. They can eat breakfast at school or lunch. Theoretically, those who cannot afford it have avenues to eat 2 meals daily at no cost to their families. Also included in the school district statement was the following list of services available to families that need assistance. Angel accounts where citizens, local churches, nonprofit organizations, and businesses can donate money to our schools to cover meal charges. Backpack programs are available in most of our schools for the weekend meals. Snacks are donated so that students are able to have supplemental food during the day. The federal government provided meals at no cost for all students beginning in March 2020, beginning with the 2022-2023 school year and the end of the state of emergency. This federal relief has ended. DCS mailed free reduced lunch forms to every household in July of 2022. Some families were directly certified for free reduced lunch meals based on their benefits they received. Before the first day of school in DCS, a school message was delivered to all families that meals were no longer provided at no cost. Families were encouraged to complete the free reduced lunch application if they were not able to pay. Those who are able to pay were encouraged to create an account with lunchrepay.com. We have a board policy that was adopted in June of 2011 that prevents high school students from charging meals in the cafeteria. High school students were given a grace period of the first 9 weeks, allowing them to charge meals as they became accustomed to the payment procedures mandated prior to the benefits provided during the pandemic. We are always willing to work with families and students in a variety of ways to make sure our students are fed. Look, they had some good PR trying to respond to this. This isn't the first policy on school fees that has sparked questions within the Davidson County community. DCS has a policy in place that forbids students from taking part in extracurricular activities while they have outstanding instructional fees. Let me see. Earlier in October, Holly Green stated a community fund after getting started a community fund after getting an email from her children's school that stated only children with no school fees could attend the school dance. I'm going to fast forward. This is a really long article. There's another portion in here where it talks about without the school fees, you're not allowed to graduate or get the cap and gown and some other things. Long story short, the opinion I always have on that is there's no reason why school just can't. I feel like school lunches should just be free across the board nationally. There's no ifs, ands, or buts because our government can afford it. And I just think, one, again, when you live in a country where 6% of the budget goes to education and 2/3 of our budget goes to war, there's some money in there to feed the kids. And again, we're living in a country where, once again, 1 in 5 children are what you call for pretty much starved, where they live in a space where they're not getting adequate meals sometimes. And yes, we have the conversation of paperwork and everything, but understand too, you got people that are in some questionable living arrangements where there's not a paper trail on their existence, or you have people that, like we know, are using the different zip codes that are not really where they live in order for the kids to go there, but they're trying to give the kids a better education. And so sometimes their stuff is not on paper because they don't want to go to jail, because we live in a country where if you use the wrong zip code for your child's place of academic education in K through 12, you may end up being charged and arrested. But I just think something like school lunch should be free. And the reason why we even got to this space goes back to Reagan when he cut all that money from the lunch program, right? Lunch, people were already paying for lunches, but there was a lot more backing in regards to ensuring that the lunches were back. And mind you, the kids already aren't even getting great food, right? The food is already some nonsense. Have you seen what these kids got to eat at school? And now you want to sit there and humiliate the kid and take the tray away, throw it away. Like, we're already in this space where we're already in a weird climate. Folks want to shoot up the school every week anyway. You really want to take some food away from somebody that's hungry and embarrass them in front of everybody and then expect them to come back the next day and go through the same thing again? Like, I understand things happen. Yes, I understand that there is a process to apply for different things and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, if you're forcing people to bring their children to school, because understand there's truancy laws, right? And in certain states have things like the Becca bill, where, again, if your children are not going to school, you get arrested, right? So, or a Becca bill where if your children miss more than 13 days, then automatically they fail. It depends on what state you're in, what the rules are. But again, legally, children have to go to school. So if you're going to force parents to make sure that their kids go to school, make sure that the kids can at least go there and eat, right? Like, how do you expect a child to learn something if they're in there hungry? And even kids that do bring stuff from home. Maybe I'll say that for the podcast. I'm not going to tell that story. But I've seen some things with some kids that really just don't have it and are in predicaments where you know, they don't even qualify for assistance for a lot of different technicalities. But I have seen some stuff that didn't sit well in my spirit. So, you know, I think there has to kind of be a restructure in regards to how we approach education, right? You know what I mean? Understand, like, the schools are already not balanced in regards to the resources that are there. It depends on where you live. Some schools are better than others. Some are more funded, but it's just, I think there's some things that are just cruel. And I think, again, children should not be collateral to bad policy by adults. Like, in my opinion, school lunch should just be free. And that's all. It shouldn't even be a thing about having to apply for it. Like, it should just be free. That's how I feel. And then same way that a lot of cities can make public transportation free for kids that have to take like the subways, then you can make the food free, right? Jesus. You're gonna embarrass the kids over a meal. You know how pissed I'd be if I was in there with my little square pizza and my little, you know, they got the little juice with the straw that you stick in, and then y'all took my tray and threw my pizza away because I ain't had no money. Kind of nonsense, man. Anyway, let's read a few comments. Let us see here. Somebody said this is some evilness. Feed the kids. Yeah, it's messed up. I can't see it. Absolutely not. This is cruelty, or this cruelty is unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up. 2008 B. Scott said, really, our southern states can be so pathetic. It ain't just a southern one. It's all of them, to be honest. Let me see. Just replacing government with freaking charity. It's because that does sound crazy. Like the fact that you'd have to start a community charity to fund the kids to eat lunch. Like, y'all, I bet you some people getting raises this year. Like, you know what I mean? And not the teachers, but I'm talking about the people up top. You know, the teachers are already underpaid. So just imagine that you're a teacher. You're already not getting paid what you need to get paid. You got an oversized classroom. You're over there living like Abbott Elementary. And then here comes one of your students that's hungry. And if you're a great teacher with a heart, you're going to feel bad and give the kids some money so they can go get some lunch. Or, you know, like anybody that works with youth will tell you, you end up spending a lot of your own money taking care of other people's kids all the time. Crazy. Because then they want to call CPS if the kids ain't got nothing to eat, right? Avocado Queen said, free Spanish lessons on me if you're ever interested. My Spanish is horrible now. I was never fluent, but I was doing okay for a few years, and I don't have to practice it anymore, so mine is terrible. I told you that time UPS lost my box. Like, I had this box. My dad had mailed me all of our home videos, like every last one, every home video from age, well, it was 2 sets. One set actually he didn't mail, but everything from like 8th grade onwards and a few videos from when I was in elementary and some videos from when we lived in Italy. He had mailed them all to me because he wanted me to put them on DVDs because, you know, the videos were starting to, you know, get the wear and tear. And so unfortunately, when he mailed it, I was in Myrtle Beach for a work conference. And so when I got back, you know, I thought the box would be there at the mailroom, but some other neighbor in my building signed for the package. I never saw the box again. And I remember going to all my neighbors and trying to speak Spanish to get my box. La grande caja moreno is me. I don't know what I was saying, but I was up there trying hard. Nothing. Never saw that box again. So there is no video footage of my childhood at all, which I still gets under my skin on occasion. And I think there were some pictures and stuff in there too. So I don't have a lot of artifacts from my childhood that it kind of pisses me off when I think about it. Maybe I pray maybe one day, I don't know, I'll get famous or something and somebody will say, oh, I know him. I think I stole his box. Let me mail it to him. Has all my old like talent shows and stuff on it, but whatever. Okay, we want to keep moving. Oh, thank you, RO. Calvin, I encourage you to start a membership for your channel, book club, and podcast and other upcoming projects. Your supporters will undoubtedly join because we all know how special you are. Thank you so much. It's a thought. I just, for some reason, I just don't feel right about charging people. But I think if I can become more consistent, then it will be an option. But yeah, I just really just like to relay the information for you guys. You know, plus, remember, I was demonetized from like 2012 to like 2017. So I was just on here just doing it just because I was just wanted to share stuff with y'all. You know what I mean? So it's kind of already embedded. But one of my friends is like, you got to be a bit more business savvy at some point. All right, moving on. Somebody asked me about Elon Musk and Twitter. It is what it is. Yeah, somebody said, what are you even going to do with that stuff? I guess you're talking about the videos. I'm somebody who's like a historian, well, obviously, but I love to hold on to like videos and stuff and just watch them and look back. Especially as a lot of my older family members have moved on. It's always good to go back and look at like old videos and stuff and remember how things were. You know what I mean? So some of those videos that were on there, there are moments you can't get back. And then after you start losing parents and stuff, you cherish those random moments. Like there's this one video. I wish I could, hopefully I can explain it properly. It's the funniest thing. But when we lived in Italy, my dad bought me this bike. He bought me a Huffy bike, but the bike was too big. It was like an adult size bike. And I was about 10. No, I was 9. I was like 9, maybe 8 or 9. Right. And so there's this video and all you can see is me on the bike and you can't see my parents, but you can hear them talking in the background. And so my dad has the camera like zoomed in on me. I'm trying to get on the bike because my legs can't reach the pedals. It's either you have the legs on the pedals or the arms on the bar. I couldn't do both. I wasn't tall enough. And so I got on the seat. Mind you, the seat was like this high. You know when there's like that metal pole that you can lower or whatever to make the seat lower or higher. My dad had the thing so high. So I'm already like sitting over here all hunched up and everything on the bike, like trying to get on it. And so the video, you hear my mom talking like, don't you think maybe we should just lower the seat? And my dad was annoyed because he didn't want to go and do nothing else. Like, no, I told his butt to straddle the seat and ride. He don't think. Like, so my dad is just chewing me out, right? And so I had never saw this video until I was like 20. And I put the video and I'm watching it. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? I was like, Dad, y'all over here cussing me out in this video because I couldn't ride the bike that was too big that you bought. Like, what kind of nonsense? It's the funniest video because it's like, it's through the lens of the parents where they're just frying me up. Like, and I have no idea because I'm on the bike just going through it. And as you see me on the bike, there's a portion where I get on it and I can't reach the pedals. So the bike is just rolling with me on it. And I crashed into like this fence where the dumpster was. What a time. So yeah, I enjoy all those videos. I like to hold on to all those things. Anyway, let's jump into some of this affirmative action case. Because again, there's a lot of things happening. This is why I keep saying this is not the time to check out politically. I understand people are frustrated. People always say, they say this every time. They say every election is a threat to democracy. They say every election, this is going to be the one that matters. I understand every last one is going to matter because each election is always going to be extreme. As long as something like understand, you're never going to be able to vote your way out of anti-blackness or white supremacy or some of the nonsense that's there. But you at least want to be able to find leverage with people that can somewhat chip away at the status quo. And so anytime we decide to back away because we don't like what we didn't get or, somebody didn't do this or didn't do that. And, it's this, that, and the third. Just understand now you got lunatics getting in there that get to do what they want, submit different things. And so then when you finally do get into a space where maybe you do have some power, look at all the stuff you got to undo. And then you can never even get to the things that you really want because now you're undoing, you're seam ripping. Because again, I've always said, I personally feel that Black people, sadly, we vote from a defensive standpoint. We never get to be on the offense because we're always trying to fight against the next crazy person that's trying to come in there and make things worse for us. Because again, when the country is not doing well, Black people will always be collateral. If white people ain't doing well, we do even worse because that's the way that the country's set up. And I get it. There are people who are one issue voters, and I fully understand. But as for me in my house, I have not tapped out yet. Anyway, let me get to this affirmative action story. By the way, I had to subscribe to the New York Times just to get this article. So one of y'all owe me $6. No, I'm just kidding. Let me pull it up. All right, because this goes into litigation tomorrow, actually. All right, let's read some of this. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, even though I said that with the last one. We was over here just reading and reading. In clash over affirmative action, both sides invoke Brown versus Board of Education. The Supreme Court will hear arguments on Monday about admissions policy at Harvard and the University of North Carolina and the meaning of a civil rights landmark. All right. When the Supreme Court hears arguments on Monday on the fate of affirmative action in higher education, the justices will be working in the looming shadow of a towering legal landmark, Brown versus Board of Education. Side note, did you guys know Brown versus Board of Education was not even going to be called that? It was actually, let me see if I can find it really quick. Because it was actually 5 cases, right? There were 5 different cases that were taking place, all with the same theme. And so pretty much Brown versus Board of Education ended up being the one that was like the most appealing case in regards to what they wanted to put in the media. I wrote it down like the other day. Hopefully I can find it. If not, I'm gonna get back to my story because y'all know I'll segue into something so quick. Come on. You know what? I'm gonna just charge it to the game for now. We'll come back to it. I will revisit that topic on one of the end of the news just because I want to stay on this topic. All right. Both sides claim the mantle of Brown, which is widely thought to be the court's finest moment. The challengers say the decision requires admissions policies to be colorblind, dooming race-conscious programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina. The universities respond that Brown's board education meant to do away with a racial caste system that subjugated Black students, and that the decision surely allowed efforts to assemble varied student bodies to ensure educational diversity. Brown's singular status only deepened the debate over its meaning. Justin Driver, a law professor at Yale, said. Let me scroll a little bit. All right. Brown is the Mona Lisa of American constitutional law, he said. It is not only the court's most scrutinized and most famous opinion, but its meaning also shifts when viewed from different angles. Both sides have argued that the Brown opinion is, both sides may have a point. Michael W. McConnell, a law professor at Stanford, said, the Brown opinion is profoundly ambiguous, and they are appealing to different aspects of the opinion, legitimately different aspects, he said. It is a case about not assigning on basis of race, I cannot read tonight. Is it a case about not assigning on the basis of race, or is it a case about making sure that African-American school children get a fair shake in education? The group challenging the two admissions programs, Students for Fair Admissions, or SFFA, sounds like I'm singing that Nicki song, put Brown front and center in his briefs. In a discussion of racial classifications in education must start with Brown, its lawyers wrote on Monday. I'm going to scroll because this is a long article. Just know, yeah, pretty much if this gets gutted, right, we're going to see a shift in what happens in education. So let me get to my point. So a lot of people always fight and claw about the conversations of affirmative action, and they try to paint this picture and say, oh, what it is it's this thing where they go and they put unqualified Black people in the positions, at least with education, and then qualified white students that worked hard don't get into the school of their choice. And yeah, it's just not a fair system, right? That's what's normally told, right? When in reality, people never look at the bigger picture in regards to affirmative action and how it works. Understand that when you take into account college admissions, a bunch of things are factored in. Yes, the academics. Yes, they factor SAT scores or ACT scores, which, again, I told you there's an issue I have with that. I have a whole video on standardized testing and why it was pretty much something that was put out there specifically to ensure that you could keep races separated based on intelligence. But the conversation around intelligence, it's a subjective conversation because the races or the tests were specifically created to ensure that Black people would underperform. So go back and check out that video. Thank you, Avocado Queen. And so you have that issue in regards to everything happened. I just lost my train of thought. I'm losing it. But anyway, understand that in addition to that, with most universities, 10 to 25% of the students are legacy, right? Meaning they've already gone there. Meaning that if they're legacy, a lot of times they already come from money, or in addition to that, sometimes they already donate to the university. Just understand that there's already wealth somewhere accumulated in the picture, right? And so when you have legacy, especially at the Ivy League, because the legacy numbers start to go up higher at the Ivy Leagues, right? When you have legacy, right, it kind of closes the door on other people. So sometimes even people who are legacy are not even really qualified, but because somebody got in, they get to get in because somebody in their family was able to get into through different doors. And then understand, even when we talk about the standardized testing, recognize that depending on where you come from and what it is that you have, you are equipped with different resources in regards to doing well on some of these standardized tests. When you come from money, you have money for an SAT tutor, or you have time to take an SAT class or anything else like that. If you don't come from that same experience, it's not the same value in regards to what it is that you're able to learn. Thank you, Sexy Alley Cat. In addition to that, understand, we know that based on zip code, the opportunities shift. Some schools and institutions have everything and others don't, right? You know, the thing for the life of me, when I started working with kids, you know, I had some kids that came out of like the Fairfax County school system. Understand, Fairfax County, Virginia is the third richest county in all of America as far as median income. Now, the kids that I work with were not a part of that wealth. They were one of the pockets of poverty that just existed in that region. But when I saw what was offered at that freaking school, like West Potomac High School, first of all, they sports. You know, when I went to high school, we you know, the regular everyday sports, football, basketball. I don't think we had a baseball. We had a baseball team, baseball, soccer, track. Those are it. I went to little West Potomac High School over there in Alexandria, Virginia. In addition to football, basketball, they have indoor track, outdoor track, because they have winter track, they got spring track, they got lacrosse, they have rugby, they have archery, they got a gymnastics team, they have a pom team, they got a cheerleading team, they got a dance, they have like 50,000 different sports that you could play. Understand, when you come from a place where there are pockets of wealth and there's opportunity, it allows new spaces. Because think about it, if you're some random kid from a town that does, I'm sorry, West Potomac has a swim team too, and I think they got a bowling team as well. If you come from a place that does not have a gymnastics program, but you're applying to get into a top gymnastics program at some university, understand that you're already starting from behind the starting line against kids that were in spaces where their parents were able to fund their lessons for whatever else they have. Understand that there are a bunch of kids in a lot of schools all across America. And this is even bigger than black and white, because even in a lot of poor white American, working class white American spaces, they have that same issue as well. But again, understanding that a lot of the schools in America are underfunded, are poor, do not have anything. And so if you don't come from one of those healthier, wealthier spaces, then unfortunately the opportunities close. Now, in response to what I just said about the working class white Americans, the only thing that I will say, sadly for y'all, I don't know how it didn't work out for y'all, but y'all got a whole system to back y'all. So y'all gonna be all right either way. No disrespect. I'm just saying, to an extent. And when I say be all right, I'm not just talking about financially, but I'm talking about the idea of being white in America. All right. Anyway, but getting back to my point. So then you also see, like, again, then we remember the cheating scandal, all these rich celebrities. And again, mind you, that probably had been something that had been happening for decades, where celebrities were paying people off to, do the entrance exams and everything else like that. And so understand, universities also look at finances. When people apply to a university, they're going to look at what it is you bring at home, and they're going to make decisions based on how well they think you're going to be able to actually either matriculate through the university, or if the university is going to have to come out of pocket to fund you and depend on assistance from the federal government to make up the difference of what you can't pay. And so a lot of times universities, yes, they tend to look at wealth. They tend to look at a bunch of different things. And so when we talk about who has the wealth in America, it tends to be white America. And so it's crazy because people have now taken this conversation and tried to paint it as a picture of, oh, it's people who just aren't qualified who are getting in the door. And this is why we talked about the Abby girl who didn't get into the university she wanted to get into. And she just knew it was because some unqualified black person took her seat. And so she went and took this all the way to the Supreme Court, right? Now, she lost because technically she didn't have the credentials to even get into the school. And when they did the survey of the people who did get in from that respective class, literally every person outperformed her that got in. So, that's the kind of space that we're in. But I want to give kind of an analogy to kind of paint the picture. Hopefully I can do this properly, because I did not practice this before I started it. So if it don't make sense, we're going to make it make sense by the time we're done. All right. So let's just say you have car A and car B, and they have both been tasked with the role of going and driving from New York to LA. All right. A and B, y'all both gonna get to LA. Whoever gets to LA first, like once you get to LA, there's all kind of prosperity and resources and land and everything. You get to set up shop. It's just gonna be a really, really great time. Go for it. Hold on, I actually changed our minds. A, you guys go ahead and go for it. B, we got some different rules for y'all. Now, A is gonna clearly represent white America. B is gonna represent black folks. All right. Here's the rule that they're gonna change. B is only allowed to get gas from a certain specific kind of gas station, specifically for the kind of car that B has. And that's been regulated by the law. There are no rules to change that. And so it is what it is. B can only get gas from a certain gas station, right? And so the other thing in between these two cities, right, there's going to be a bunch of checkpoints, because again, when you do a road trip, you're going to stop in different cities. You're going to stop, you're going to sleep, because you don't just drive for, 20 and 30 hours straight unless you plan on being in a ditch somewhere. So with each checkpoint, each stop, each city that they stop at, there's going to be resources, opportunities, all these things that you can utilize and take along with you and build as you go. So as you continue going to LA, if you get to one of these checkpoint cities first, then yes, the items that are in your vehicle, you're going to keep loading up on more and more things. And in addition, they'll give you assistance. So if you end up having to take a U-Haul truck or a mover truck or tow it behind you, they'll even give you that with each city that you stop in on the way there, right? So two of them get to going, right? A goes, B goes. Now, A got all the gas stations. They can go wherever they want to go. They can stop here, stop there. B, the gas stations are far few in between, right? Let's just say there's only 3 gas stations that they can use for the entire trip between New York and LA, right? So eventually what's going to happen? B is going to break down and run out of gas a few times, right? Just because there's no other gas station. There's a gas station right there in front of them, but they can't use it. Understand that represents what we're talking about in America in regards to the limitations that were put on Black people in regards to policy, in regards to education, housing, all of those conversations, redlining, healthcare, all of that. That's what this is symbolic of. All right. So stay with me. So anyway, B has to break down. Now, mind you, A is just rolling. Like keep rolling, right? So they're going, and A is stopping in all these different cities, and they're, grabbing all the resources. And mind you, at the same time, they take everything with them. When they leave, they take everything. They ain't leaving nothing behind them. All right. Take everything with them as they go, right? So A is good. A is going, and they don't got to California. They're there. They're in LA. They've already set up shop. They're starting on their journey. B is still trying to. They've only got 200 miles. They're going down 200 miles. I don't know why my voice is going out tonight. It might be because I hosted that event last night. But anyway, so B has only gotten like 200 miles, right? And the car broke down. They got to walk to the next gas station. And, again, they can't go to just any gas station. They can only go to the gas stations that are assigned for car B. So they're going to walk however many miles to get to this gas station, probably emaciated or whatever, get back to the car. They keep going. As they get to these cities with checkpoints, there is nothing there for them because it's already been taken. Too bad, so sad, right? So they keep going, Like I said, A is good. A has done so well. Now they're sending for other family members to come, so they're sending for other relatives. Go ahead and take the car and go back and get the other people from New York. But in addition to that, because now we know what we need to do in order to get here because we've already done it and we have support and we had resources, i.e. the support from the federal government in the form of things like the GI Bill, FHA loans, the New Deal, all those things Black people were left out of. This is a conversation of symbolism, right? Because we have all of those different things. Oh, and again, redlining. Okay, first dibs on the land, because back in the day before they decided to start redlining things, property used to actually depreciate. But once they decided to redline and decided that property would be more valuable based on who was in it and who was in proximity to those that were technically Black, all of a sudden property would appreciate it the further you were away from Black folks, or all of a sudden property started to appreciate after redlining, right? Because back in the day when you bought a house, you didn't plan to stay in it forever. You moved to something else in 20 years because the value would go down. Now we're in a space where you buy the house and the land is worth a whole lot after 10, 20, 30 years. But anyway, back to my point. So A is sending their family members back to go get the other folks, right? Now, mind you, because they have been able to build and B is still on the way, they might have just got to the next checkpoint. So I'm guessing maybe they're probably at about Illinois at this point. It's been a minute. All right. A is they done got the relatives out there. More relatives are coming and everything like that. In addition to that, they're setting up shop and changing the rules as they come back. So the rules are changing as they're coming back and they're setting up shop at the checkpoint cities and making new rules. And mind you, as they're still sending other people back to New York, they have new ways to get there. The wealth that has accumulated, the goods that were accumulated on their way as they stopped at all the checkpoints and got everything, they're now utilizing that to make their journey even easier. So now the family members, they can fly. They don't even got to drive anymore. He get in the plane. Instead of just taking 4 people in the car, we can now take 250. We got a Boeing 737. So all y'all, or 747, all y'all get on in here and fly on over there and then bring everybody else back. And so you got has an entire lineage of family members that are flying in, driving in, coming in on the train, coming in all these different ways, setting up shop, getting an opportunity to do all of these different things in regards to whatever it is that they want to do, because they got to California first. They got to LA first. They got all this land. They got everything, right? And so eventually B finally gets there. Yay, B gets there. We finally made it. I don't even know how they got there. One of the family members probably didn't even make it. 2 or 3 of them died on the way. They died of starvation. Wasn't nowhere to eat as they did these checkpoints, right? B finally gets there and they're trying to find a place to purchase some land. And then the rules, because A was already there and their descendants and the people that were going to make the rules were already there. They said, oh, we're so sorry, Team B. Your car's not shiny enough to park or own anything over here. So you're going to have to find somewhere else to go. So all of this is off limits. You can't come to any of this. But, maybe we'll let you go out to like the Sierra Nevada deserts. It's back the other way. You're going to have to turn around and go back the other way. But y'all can set up shop there or whatever. And then it comes into a space where when everybody is trying to compete for the same thing, clearly B is at a disadvantage because they never had the same opportunities as A, ever. And then A wants to fault B for not working hard enough. Well, you should have worked harder. I don't understand how y'all didn't get to California like we did. I mean, we used our gas. Why didn't you use your gas? And they're like, well, our gas, we only had 3 stations between all the states. We had to go 3,000 miles with only 3 gas stations. How are we supposed to get there? And then y'all took all the resources while we was on the way there. And it's like, whatchamacallit? And like, well, you should have pulled yourself up by the bootstrap. And literally, that's the approach that we've had with education in this country. Understand that literally for what I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to have let me check out my note right. Okay, so literally think about the existence of the United States. Black people have been left out of education literally until 1954. Hundreds of years where white America has had an advantage. And with that advantage, they were able to start corporations. They were able to start industry. They were able to influence even the political decisions of what happens in this country. And that's just education. That's not even about businesses and companies and industry. One of the things I did want to jump into, but I maybe save it for another conversation, is the conversation of ownership and why you're seeing some of the smoke a lot of these celebrities get when they decide to open their mouth. You can't shake the table if you don't own the means of operation, because they will end you very quickly. Understand that. So don't open your mouth saying a bunch of nonsense and then get mad when the smoke comes. Anyway, but pretty much a way to look at affirmative action would be like this. It would be like if there was a pool, right? Let's say that, the average pool has about 13,500 gallons of water in it, right? So let's say that pool is Black prosperity, right? If you drain the whole pool, and that drainage is symbolic of slavery, sharecropping, redlining, the Jim Crow era, housing discrimination, job discrimination, discrimination in healthcare, police brutality, the judicial system, the prison industrial complex, all the things that affect Black people collectively. If you drain the pool out and then you only put in like 1,000 gallons of water, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's enough. They good. They got it. That should be enough. Go ahead and dive in from the, jump off the diving board. Dive in head first. That should be more than enough. That's literally what it looks like right now while you have everybody trying to undo what's happening in regards to affirmative action. Because the perfect examples are, you can look at what happened with UCLA. The minute they decided to pull race out of a conversation in regards to admissions at UCLA, the Black enrollment dropped 57%. Now, that was in 2007. I don't even know what the percentage is now in regards to 2022. But recognize, this is not a conversation about who's qualified. It's not a conversation about who's the best. It's a conversation about making right the wrongs that took place and how those wrongs still affect people today because they were systemically implemented all across the country. That's what that is. And then when we really talk about affirmative action, we recognize that really the real benefactors of affirmative action are white women. All right. However, people want to sit here and keep painting this picture of Black people are stealing things from everybody. And it goes back to that same conversation of replacement theory. Recognize also that when people are very mediocre or people are very mid or, they're not the best of the best, they are threatened when other people come into a space. They are threatened when other people can pose a challenge or bring something different, because recognize when you diversify a university, it opens up doors for things to change. The status quo is going to change because, again, recognize the scope and the lens of every university is going to be seen through a certain perspective. This is why I always said, even in regards to where I think Black people should go to school, because some people say Black people should only go to HBCUs. I think Black people should actually go to both because Black voices are needed in both institutions. When you're talking about a majority white institution, the lens of the campus is through a white lens. The perspective heartbeat of that campus is through the lens of whiteness. Without diversity, without different groups of people represented, those who go to that university will continue to operate in the realm of thinking that they are the standard or thinking that their way of thinking is the way that things go. And then as they matriculate and become successful and go and get whatever great careers that they get, they hold on to those mindsets. They hold on to those viewpoints, and then they make sure that they put people in power to keep that same status quo going. And that's how we have what we have. So I've always felt that Black people are needed at both. Where is my phone? Oh, all these notes. All right. And so just recognize, like, the scary thing with this is when you look at the layout of the Supreme Court, because the other problem is, even within the Black collective, we got folks who get on and then they forget where they come from. Or again, proximity to whiteness. Because I've always said, some of the most dangerous people in regards to anti-Blackness are people that aren't even white. It's the people who want proximity to whiteness, who want to get into those doors, so they will do anything at the detriment of their own community to get in that door. So when you look at the Supreme Court, you already know what Clarence Thomas is going to do. Because, listen, he's one of the reasons why we're dealing with this nonsense in regards to voting now. He's one of the main people who decided to gut Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act back in 2013, talking about everything was all good now. And now look at the nonsense we have going in regards to voting. All kind of new oppressive policy and stuff being put out there because there's no way to check and regulate things, because they wanted to push the narrative that everything was all fine, everything was all dandy, everybody's equal, and we're all American. We all just bleed the same blood. People always do that after they done took up everything. So yeah, you have a 6-3 Supreme Court. There is a really strong chance that they are going to gut this. And people are going to say, oh no, they're not going to gut it because, it's precedent. So I was like, yeah, and so was Roe v. Wade. And we saw what happened with that, right? So who knows where this goes? But any event that does take place and they gut affirmative action, it's pretty much up to universities at that point to decide how they want to do their admissions. Recognize that is going to shift the role of who's getting into some of these schools and who's not. And it's not saying that Black people are not qualified to get into these schools, but it goes back to those factors that I brought up again, where if you're coming from a space where you are not in a space of affluence, where you're wealthy, when the university has a certain quota of students that they're going to take that are going to need financial assistance, that door just closes. That's it. So once that's it, you're on your own. And so the university is only going to take so many people who are going to need financial assistance. What demographic in America is going to need financial assistance? When we're talking about the wealth gap and the generational wealth that's accumulated by one demographic of people, but left out everybody else, people who don't have as much are going to be cut out. They're going to be left on the sidelines. And then literally the only ones who are going to get in the door are going to be the high achieving overperformers. Because recognize, like, this whole thing goes again to what I've been saying, how people are trying to submit different changes. Again, like the status quo is being challenged. And so the people that want to make sure that it is not challenged, they're going to put people in power that make sure that they submit the laws that they put into play, which is why you're seeing these lunatics that keep running for office. You're getting people who don't even have platforms, who have no real policy. Their only policy is we're not them. And they get in. We're not the radical whatever left. We're not this. And they get in. And so this is where we're at. That's going to be a really interesting case to follow. So I really hope people are paying attention with what's happening with that, because that's going to be a serious thing to consider, especially even in regards to like scholarship. Interesting. And I know people keep trying to say, oh, well, again, it's colorblind. So either you're qualified or you're not. But it goes back again to recognizing that conversation of colorblind is some BS, because it kind of erases the experience of the people who would be behind those colors. And so, no, colorblind is not really colorblind, because structurally, things are still going to be racially discriminated against and separated and segregated, especially in regards to wealth and in regards to even where people live, thanks to redlining and what happens with our housing, what happens with our schools, and how the schools are funded. We know schools are funded through property taxes. If you're in an area where there's no wealth and there's no money, those schools and those districts have less money to go around, less resources to spend on each student, as opposed to an area that has more wealth, that's able to invest more in the students, where students are also in a space where there's more opportunity to do things to get them in the door, where they can spend a summer at Yale for a senior leadership program that they can fly to because their parents have the money to do it. That's not everybody's experience. So recognize Black people have never been made whole in regards to what happened with the lapses in education, in regards to equity and what was available. We've never been made whole. A system was put into play, which is technically affirmative action. And even that was a slow process. It was a slow grain of progress. It never got us there. It never ended the what you would call the educational gap. Because again, when you keep having all these different people coming into positions of power, and because again, even though we kind of have somewhat of a nationalized educational system, it's not nationalized, it's not centralized. Each state has their own rules. Within those states, the districts and the counties have their own rules, and so rules constantly change, things keep warping. And so that's why kids who go to school in Baltimore are going to have a very different experience from kids who go to school in Denver. You know what I mean? And so there's so much that can be said. We will see where it goes, but I don't know about this Supreme Court. Somebody like a Clarence Thomas is in the way, and so you can't depend on him for nothing. Because some folks get in the door and they say, well, once I made it, we're good. So the rest of y'all figure it out. Anyway, I said a whole lot without taking any breaths. I don't know how I be doing that sometimes. Sometimes I watch my videos. I'm like, Negro, can you slow down? Like, I be feeling bad for y'all because I get in my pocket like, and in 1922, I'm like, Lord. Anyway, all right, let's see. Thank y'all for those who pay for that subscription. Look, now we're gonna have some good articles because now we got New York Times. All right. All right, let's see. We covered a lot in that. 2008 B. Scott said, again, I keep finding all your comments for some reason. Again, making us the face of a policy that is the quickest way to garner solidarity against it. Furthermore, what elite Asians don't get what elite Asians don't get is that they play by whites for whites. There is, do I want to go there? Let's see if I can find the article. I'm going to save it for the next in the news. I'll talk about it on a different video, but understand, boy. Let me write that down. I'm going to save that for in the news. I'm not going to do it tonight because I want to have my facts right before I just open my mouth. Noted. Okay. Anyway. Princess Ariel M saying, oh, here we go. Youth saying their ancestors weren't slaves. Is this the new Black youth confused by Shonda Rhimes, Lin-Manuel, and Hollywood soft showing 400 years of brutality and romancing the diaspora? I think it's a bit more layered than that. I think we're also in a space where there's a lot of misinformation flying around, right? And I also think, again, we've talked about what's happened with things like the movements against a CRT, right? And any conversations of race are all of a sudden divisive. Did y'all see that clip of DeSantis at his debate where he was talking about, now people want to say America was founded on stolen land and something, and we know that that's not true. And again, this is somebody that's a governor of an entire state who gets the final call in regards to what happens to the education of that state. So you can imagine what them kids got in their textbook, where now all of a sudden one thing that was already understood as collective thought and understanding, where we know, yes, people came over here, snatched the land from the Native Americans and turned it into America. Now, all of a sudden, that's not true. And apparently, somehow that's divisive. Anything that tries to make people take accountability for what they did wrong, all of a sudden is divisive until it's put against Black folks. Then all of a sudden, Black folks, y'all need to do something about that Black on Black crime. Why are you so worried about police brutality? Y'all need to take care of that. I said, well, isn't that a very divisive statement? But it's not divisive then. It's only divisive when white people have to be held accountable for things that they're still benefiting from today. Anyway. Let's see. Tennis and golf. I don't know if they got a tennis team at the school I was talking about, but I know they might have. Actually, I think they do have tennis. I mean, that school got everything. I was like, my school didn't have half of it. We used to have to put buckets in the hallway because when they built my high school, and mind you, I didn't even go to a school that was like super broke or nothing. It was just kind of like that middle America, working class America kind of high school that existed back in like the 90s, 2000s that you saw in the sitcoms. But they built the roof wrong on my high school. And so whenever it rained, like if it was a really, really bad downpour, now mind you, Washington State gets rain, but they don't really get a lot of downpours. But any event that there was a downpour, we'd have to put buckets in the hall because them water would just be coming down everywhere. So I'm like, that's my school. So then I go to see the school where my kids were going, and I'm like, y'all got everything in the world up in here. Mind you, the school had a whole separate building just for the theater. I said, y'all are fancy up in here. This building alone was like the size of my school. So, okay. But they also have a really big school. It's like 3,800 students that go there. So, all right. And that's just one of the schools that fed into the center. Anyway. All right. Oh, Queen. Yep, we're on the same page. Brown vs. Board of Education was called something else prior. I just watched the CBS special Making Black America, and they mentioned it, but I can't recall. I wish I have it somewhere in my phone on one of these little note things, but I don't feel like scrolling through it. But yeah, there were 5 cases that were all taking place at the same time in regards to K through 12 education. And so Brown vs. Board of Education was the one that kind of got the media push. Dang. Oh, here it goes. Because it was initially going to be called Riggs versus Elliott. All right. That was what the name should have been as far as the case. There were 5 cases consolidated into one. They didn't want a southern state being the face of the case. It's always a new bitch you learn all the time. All right. Let's keep going. Thank you, Ms. Lee 333. Avocado Queen said, "Will I be in Northern California anytime soon?" Not on this trip because of the filming that we're doing. I'm not even going to get to really enjoy LA. We're going to be working so hard the whole time because there's so much we got to do in like a short amount of time. But I think I'm going to see my Bay Area relatives in the spring. I haven't seen them since 2019, so it's time to go up there and visit. Normally, I always visit the Bay and I visit LA at the same trip, but I haven't had a chance, so I'm definitely going to go there in the spring at some point. Let's keep it going. All right. Incognito Negro says, "We definitely got his back. I'd write him in my will." Calvin, oh y'all don't be dying off and leave me nothing but thank you. Calvin is just as honest, and the level of honesty comes at a heavy price. He will never get the level of public funding because of who he is. Very true, very true. You know, I was telling somebody that the other day because they're like, maybe you should do more like celebrity content to get a bigger platform. But I was like, listen, I like talking celebrity, but I'm not a one trick pony, and that's not a dig at anybody that only does that. But we can celebrate and talk celebrity, but it's hard to only focus on celebrity when you got all this stuff going on, right? You know what I mean? So that's why I just do it all together, like do it all. Anyway, let's keep it going. But thank you for that. That was a very nice comment. Lady Tanya said, and folks still don't want to believe that. I think that's in regards to what DeSantis was saying at the debate. And folks just, there's an attack on not just education, but like true education and the truth. You know what I mean? And this is why I keep saying, and I say over and over again, it's not the time to tap out, because as we continue to see the more extreme people come into positions of power, they get to change the narrative and sign things into law. There's a video I've been meaning to do, and one day I will finally get it done, but it's a video that correlates how the end of the Civil War plays a role into what happened with our textbooks today. And it plays a conversation in things like the Daughters of the Confederacy, how the textbooks are purchased. One of these days I will have enough time to actually do it. But I've been meaning to do that for like 2 years. And it even correlates with why you saw the influx of statues that started coming up in regards to like the Confederate statues and why. Like, ooh, when I get a chance. I got a lot going on between like now and February. Just know I'm booked till like February right now. And so I've been working really hard to try to be a bit more consistent on the channel because there ain't enough hours in the day. All right. Let's see. Toy 84 said, "This is why Black people need to stop falling for the lie that that learning history in this country is keeping us stuck in the past. I'm kind of tired of people saying that too. Understand, I get when people are frustrated about like maybe the movies that keep coming out, like, oh, we're tired of the slave narratives or this, that, and third. I hear that, but understand, in regards to education and history and what's being presented out there, you have to understand and you have to know what you're up against so you don't keep running into it. So for those who did watch my Kanye video, a lot of y'all were pissed because they all thought I was about to spend all day on Kanye, and really we had a totally different conversation. But that video specifically highlighted that I've always said we live in a cycle, right? A cycle of things that continues to repeat itself. And that video specifically highlighted how there was a cycle in regards to what was happening with housing. And I correlated it to police brutality and what happened in regards to the Liberty City riots and the comparisons to the LA riots. And just again, how we live in this certain cycle. And so now when we're talking even education, look at the cycle that we're living in, where people are trying to seam, rip, and change the narrative of what happens. Even things like slavery. Some schools are changing the narrative to the point where, oh, yeah, people traveled over here for a better life. I was like, not voluntarily. Where y'all get that from? Unpaid interns. Oh, well, slavery wasn't that bad. It was kind of like an indentured servitude. The people, they worked, and yeah, they were slaves, but they were fed, they had food, they had living quarters, and if they weren't brought over here, they would have never been able to fend for themselves over there, because it was just these feral places that just had no elements of education, as if Luxor and all these other places weren't over there. But you know what I mean? Or as if all the great thinkers, Aristotle and all of them, didn't go to Africa to go and study before they went and took credit for everybody else's work and passed it off as their own. But whatever. Yeah, that's why I say we can't tap out. I know we don't like half the folks who got in there, and this is why I keep saying I wish people would get behind a lot of the candidates that they believe in. The problem is, by the time it's election season, everybody's annoyed because nobody likes the people that we have to choose from. If you follow me, at least since 2018, I've been saying the time for pushing candidates and doing the grassroots organizations and all that was then, to prepare for now. And now here's the now, and people don't like the people that are on the table or on the platform to vote for. And then you're going to get the wave of people who are like, I told you so. I told y'all that's what y'all want. That's what y'all going to get. Mind you, when it was time to have these discussions, they had nothing to say. The I told you so disciples are on their way. So understand, after these midterms, if it ends up being some nonsense, you're going to get a bunch of I told you so's coming out there who never had anything to say. And somebody, by the way, also, because I do want to address this as well, because somebody said on one of the videos, yeah, you're always talking all this educational stuff, but you'll never come up with a solution. Understand, in this fight, everybody has a specific role. Your job is not to wear every single hat, because when you have people who want to be the educator, the organizer, the fighter, the face of the movement, the spokesperson of the movement, the person who you're never going to be able to get anything done because that person's trying to do too much. Everybody has a specific role that they play in this game. For me, I feel like my gift is education, teaching, right? I feel like I do a decent job of taking things and making them a bit more understandable so that that can go and influence people who have the skills to go and organize or structure or create movements, to go and do what they need to do. And then when they need the backing, or they need the facts, or they need whatever to push their narrative, or to get people to get the buy-in, boom, here's the facts, here's the research. And it's not just me. There's a bunch of people who make content similar to mine that speak about truth or speak about things that affect Black people collectively, even from standpoints of economy or economics, standpoint of education, standpoint of healthcare, standpoint of just your social and your mental and well-being. There's so many people that have a different role. Everybody plays a role in the fight. And the problem is, people always want somebody to be everything. That's why when people say, oh, we don't got Black leaders anymore. We don't need Black leaders. We just need a collective thought and a collective movement to get things done. The idea of having all power in the hands of one person or two people to represent a collective of 40 million is just not going to work. And when we thought it was working, they went and assassinated everybody. So that's supposed to be a lesson learned. So why are we trying to go back and recircle and redo exactly what we already had that unfortunately didn't work? And that is not a diss to any of the leaders who did what they did in their past. They did what they did so we could get here and people like me could sit here and talk my trash. But understand, that was a stepping stone. So now it's now we have to get to the next stepping stone. Everybody plays a role. Real talk, I feel like anybody who is for the progressive livelihood, I don't even want to say the word progressive because people are going to associate that with politics. Anybody who is for just the well-being of Black people collectively plays a role in all of this. Even the people who got substance abuse problems. True story. There was a car accident outside of my building the other day. And so on this side right here, below me on 6 floors down, there's a parking garage. And then across is this really big street. So there's a car coming and there's a car coming out the garage, and boom, they T-bone each other, right? I hear them outside cussing each other out. You mother, right? So they're cussing each other out and everything. The police are called. They can't figure out whose fault it is. Is it the person who came out the garage and hit the car that was passing, or is it the car that was passing and they weren't paying attention? And because I guess the way that the cars hit each other, you couldn't tell who was at fault, right? Everybody's arguing. Guess who was the person who figured out who was in the wrong? One of the people that kind of just live on the street. Like, by real talk, I have no judgment against anybody. Like, a lot of the homeless people in my neighborhood, I know on like a first name basis. When I see them, you get something, hey, what's up? Because it's a great way to have your own insurance. You don't ever got to worry about getting robbed on the sidewalk because they got your back. But anyway, the homeless guy that like lived not too far was like, and he does have somewhat of a substance abuse problem, but God bless him. He was like, no, it's neither their fault, because there's a car right there that's not supposed to be parked. There was a car that was parked past the little no parking sign, and it was blocking the view of both people. And it ended up being the car that was the reason both cars got into the wreck. So the car that was parked illegally was the reason that the two cars T-boned each other, and they ignored the sign. And so literally somebody that most people would most likely judge or ignore and say, oh, that's just some junkie from wherever. He was the person with all the sense that said, y'all didn't see it. There's this big old car right here blocking both of y'all views. None of y'all thought of that. Y'all are so busy trying to cuss each other out and tell the police officer who was at fault so y'all can get the insurance claim, when in reality, where's the smoke for this car that's parked illegally? So understand, everybody plays a role. And so, yeah, somebody was like, yeah, what's the solution? And that ain't my gift. If it was my gift, I would have gave you one. But I understand what my limitations are. Like, that has never really been my thing. And again, even when it comes to solutions, recognize everybody's going to see things differently. I've always felt that the idea of a national platform to do things is a challenge because it's hard to pull in so many people. I like the idea of doing things more so at a local level and working within your local collectives. And then locally, as those collectives become more successful, then they move into larger movements, as opposed to just starting one big national whatever and going with it. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a part of any groups. I do support and wish every group well with what they do, but I'm not a part of anything. I'd rather just kind of do my own thing and work in my scope. So my scope for the last 11 years was running a community center. And even though I'm technically not there anymore, I'm still there on, bi-weekly during the week to do different things with the kids and everything like that. And like I said earlier, I'm considering maybe joining the board. So everybody plays their own role. I just got on my soapbox. My bad, y'all. Anyway, all right, let's keep it going. Incognito Negress said, I like you. Got a lot on our minds. Like, everything's on our mind. Somebody said, do I have Cash App? It is in my description on every video. So when you go to the very bottom, it's there. It's just Give Me a Beat with a $sign. GIMMIEABEAT. Lord, my brain is tired. I can't even spell tonight. Oh, that's right. Somebody said revisionist history is something fierce. And that's one of the things we're kind of up against right now. Because, and really recognize that the conversation of like revisionist history and what we're seeing in regards to the policing of education goes in regards to the conversation of American exceptionalism. That's pretty much the selling point of the United States to the rest of the world, and has always been. Now, we're not in the same America of 20, 30, 40 years ago. So that exceptionalism is now being challenged because all of our competition globally, they're prospering. You know what I mean? So when you think about that idea of American exceptionalism, the greatness that is America, the United States, it's usually that era of like the 1950s. That's the imaging that they want to push. Because again, like, you go into the 50s, we already killed off all the competition in World War II. Everybody was blown up. Everybody was recovering. The benefit of the United States being where it is geographically is the fact that the United States is a very hard country to invade. So wars are never fought here. So the United States did not have to rebuild after World War II. As a matter of fact, they helped the other countries start to rebuild some of their stuff, which was a lesson learned from World War I, because one of the reasons why we came into a recession after World War I was because, again, our workforce was over there fighting, right? And they came back all broke up and broke down, and we did not really jump into the idea of rebuilding in other countries and putting our interests into their countries in regards to our franchises and our businesses. And so the lesson learned, and this is not, I'm not saying I agree with this, but this is what the United States learned. The lesson learned coming into World War II was, okay, yeah, so after we did all this, are we going to set up shop? This is why we have over 800 bases around the world today. This is why you can go to a place like freaking Iraq and find a KFC now. You know what I mean? So that's where we're at. They've learned from that lesson. But the idea of American exceptionalism, it's the idea that makes Americans feel great about themselves, but really understand who is the lens of America. It's white America. So when you challenge the idea of American exceptionalism and how great America is, because the narrative pushed behind American exceptionalism is that the United States is this place of just greatness and everybody works hard, and we are the premier engineers, the premier scientists, the premier entertainers, the premier doctors, the premier everything, well, not we, This is the we I'm talking about. The premier everything. America's the greatest. Everybody has a nice house, the white picket fence. Everybody goes on vacations. We have beaches. We have mountains. We have Disneyland. We have this. Marilyn Monroe lives here. Blah, 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 blah. You know, all of that was what the world bought into. And a lot of the world wanted to have what America had at that point in time. They loved the idea of American entertainment. They loved the idea of American fashion and all these different things and prosperity and having your plots of land. But as the world changed, as other countries came into their own and they built their own industries, their own corporations, and there was more competition to go around, you saw America start to decline in education. We weren't number one in all that stuff anymore. We started declining in healthcare. We started declining in the expectancy of life or life expectancy. We started to decline in a lot of things. And now we're in a space where literally the only thing America can hold on to give themselves the illusion that the United States is still a country that runs the show is the idea of American exceptionalism. Yes, we technically run the show as far as GOP and finances, but in regards to the quality of life, it is not in the United States anymore, and it hasn't been. And so when there's ever a critique of the United States, a lot of people in white America feel that it is a critique against them. The same thing with police and the same thing with even some of these politicians. What's really scary, like I've said millions of times before, is our politics has become so tribal, and a lot of people see a lot of these politicians and people that are running as a reflection of themselves, which is why they go so hard for what it is that they believe in politically, which is why people can show up at Paul Pelosi's house and beat him in the head with a hammer. You know, like this is where we're at. That's how tribal things have gotten. Again, when you see the livelihood of what you believe and have built into falling down, you know, by the wayside, and then the people who have been the marginalized, who have been the oppressed, are calling things out and saying we're not going to put up with the nonsense anymore. We need to be made whole for what happened to us. And no, you didn't create this, we did. And the only reason y'all have this is because we did that, and so on and so forth. And the rest of the world starts to catch on. Oh, people go up in arms. You got to fight against that because that goes against the status quo. And America has to maintain that image. So yeah, we're going to shut down any conversation of police brutality because it must have been something that the people did wrong. They didn't comply. Right? You know, education. Oh, the kids can't even learn about Ruby Bridges anymore. That's CRT. So highlighting the fact that America was so racist that a little girl couldn't go to school and people threatened to poison her food to the point where she would only eat prepackaged food because she thought somebody was going to poison her lunch. We can't put that in the history books because it's going to make white people feel bad. And literally they say, well, these lessons are teaching our white kids to feel bad about being white. It's not teaching them to feel bad about being white. It's teaching them to recognize that America has not always been perfect. And in order to ensure that things are better for the next generation and the generation that we're in, let's make sure we don't repeat the mistakes that took place in the past. But ain't nobody trying to hear that because people want to be the status quo and operate as the standard. And so again, now you have this movement of anti-CRT, right? Just a bunch of nonsense. Folks be tripping. Let's see. Proceed with caution. Said my jaw dropped when they said rugby and lacrosse. I didn't even know what rugby was till I started working with the kids. I was like, rugby? Actually, no, I'm lying. I had a rugby game on Sega, but I didn't know how to play it at least. I didn't know it was a real thing. I thought it was only like professional people. I didn't know they had it at a high school level. And one of my kids came with all the little gadgets and stuff. And then one of the other ones was like a lacrosse player. I'm like, what is that you got? I was like, y'all got everything in here. Okay. Bunch of that's the one. And see, I feel like that's how education is supposed to work. Like I said, the kids that I work with they all lived in like a public housing complex where like the median income was like $17,000 a year for like a family of 3 or 4. And so the thing was though, because they were in Fairfax County, because that's the third richest county in America, the resources that went to all the county, they were still to an extent able to benefit from some of those things. So even though they didn't have what a lot of the other kids had, they got to at least go to a school that had everything and had opportunity as far as resources and, you know, different things that they can use to kind of get in the door in regards to education. Now, please understand, it's not a perfect utopia because then you have the culture clash. You got a bunch of wealthy, rich white kids who also come from a lot of lineage where parents owned slaves and had plantations, or their parents work for one of these big defense contracting companies, and their parents are making $400,000 and $500,000 a year or $200,000 a year, and all the big money, dual income 2 times over, right? And you know, they're sharing the same space with kids that are on free lunch. Understand that they got a lot of problems at some of these schools across the country with that. But in my opinion, the experience that I think those kids had should be the experiences. And I'm just speaking the education as far as the resources that are there, the things that the schools would offer. Like that should be something every kid gets. And every kid, unfortunately, doesn't get that. All right. Bill Pincheon said, if affirmative action is banned and the decision isn't leaked, like the abortion decision, it will cast a dull pallor. Like it's gonna be interesting to see what happens because the next thing I really think HBCUs really y'all gonna have to really figure out. Make sure you guys are good. Like most HBCUs aren't federally funded though, so they're usually funded at the state level if they are. But like that's another thing. I can definitely see one of the movements be, well, we need to get rid of HBCUs. They're not diverse enough. And when in reality, anybody can go to an HBCU. There's no rule that says you can't go if you're not Black. You know what I mean? But I can definitely see them trying to paint HBCUs as a problem. Remember, before Trump got out, one of the things that he wanted to do was have that bill where it said, anything that goes against the American exceptionalism ideologies will not be funded. And so that was a threat to pretty much like a place like even Howard. That would be a threat to them because, they're federally funded to an extent. Recognize their whole history program would have had to be like, you ain't gonna be here talking about no dang Stephen Biko and Patrice Lumumba and all of that. I ain't about to talk about that. You need to talk about how great America is. Man. We didn't get to half the topics. Oh, thank you, Jersey. Shout out to the only Jersey. If you're in Brooklyn, check out the Lotus Academy. It's like this really dope dance studio in Brooklyn. I just actually worked with them for my last music video. Really dope. It's like one of the last Black-owned dance studios in Brooklyn. So definitely check them out, Lotus. I agree with this all the way. Nines Naga. Y'all be having these names I can't pronounce. I'm like, what does it say? Celebrity worship is a mental illness. They are useful contributors if they decide to constructively contribute, but they are not competent or informed enough to be the voices of leaders or movements. And that's one of the frustrations I've always had with the idea of putting celebrities out in the forefront to speak for different collectives. I will never understand why. Well, I understand why, but I don't understand why it's still happening. Why people keep thinking you can just go and get a rapper and they're going to go and get people to vote, or they're going to get people to do things. Or like, remember I was really critical of the revolt summits that they were having of like Black America. One of the summits they had some years back, it was like T.I., Killer Mike, Candace Owens, just a bunch of people that didn't need to be there, right? And I'll just never forget where they had this portion where they're talking about just the things happening with Black America and what needed to be fixed. And then here come T.I. talking about, no, Black America, we're doing good. And then all of his examples were all celebrity related. I mean, look at all these rappers and athletes that are doing good. They got mansions and Bentleys and Beamers. Like, Black America is thriving. I'm like, that ain't us. That's y'all. Y'all are the exception. Yeah, well, you can gas up the exceptions all day. Or even when you had all of the protesting and everything after George Floyd, right? And then the mayor of Atlanta got mad. I was like, y'all can't be talking about that. I forgot who she said. It might have been Killer Mike or somebody. So-and-so owns about half of Atlanta. I said, what does that have to do? Y'all keep using these small examples of one or two people who slip through the cracks and make it. And I've always said, even with celebrity, my critique of that when people try to say that the prosperity that celebrities and athletes have should show other Black Americans that, y'all just ain't pulling yourself up by the bootstrap. That's pretty much saying that in order to have prosperity, I have to be one of the best athletes in the world. I have to be one of the best rappers in the world. I have to be one of the best actors in the world in order to just get common decency to not be shot by police, to get common decency to be able to just live in a neighborhood where the water isn't contaminated with pipes that got lead in it. That's literally what that is saying. So when we only use celebrity as justification as to why things are good, that is some nonsense. And celebrities most of the time don't have the range for any kind of conversation politically because they don't have to worry about politics, because a lot of times they have enough wealth where they can have whatever kind of life they want. It does not buy them out of anti-Blackness, but it buys them, or it allows them to be in a space where they can afford to ignore reality. You know what I mean? They can afford to do a lot of different things. Now, some celebrities learn the hard way that their money can be taken away very quickly when you shake the wrong tables. But recognize celebrities should not be speaking on behalf of Black folks because they don't do that for any other collective. Thank you, Quantum Samurai 13. Like, that's not the thing that we do. Like, when you're trying to, win over, Appalachian America, as far as like West Virginia and some parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, you don't go and get Bruce Springsteen to speak for them. But they are so quick to let's call up Jay-Z. He'll come up here and tell the people to do whatever. Just understand, people aren't that obtuse politically. People know what's up. And so for some reason, people will use celebrities, and celebrities for some reason think that they have to be the voice. I understand that celebrities recognize they have influence and they carry a lot of power. So I'm like, use that power behind the scenes to get with people who already do the work. You know, the will doesn't have to be redrawn every single time. The will's already there. But the problem is people don't want to fund things. Like I always gas up. There's an organization I love to shout out, just specifically right here in DC, Guns Down DC, right? I want to make sure I'll tell you what the website is. Hold on. Guns Down DC. Oh, I'm sorry, Guns Down Friday. It's based in DC. Sorry, Guns Down Friday. Like for those in DC, like that's the organization I really like to kind of gas up and bring awareness to, because they do a lot of work. And mind you, like they're not what you would call a reactive organization that only responds after the police have shot and killed somebody. They're doing the work all the time. They're doing backpack drives. They're doing healthcare. They're doing things all the time. And when somebody unfortunately is shot or killed by police, they raise funds for the family. This is why I said like I like the idea of more so local groups sometimes, because you can get the things can get closer. Like things get more. How do I word this? The people affected by the nonsense have a better opportunity to receive the support, as opposed to sometimes the larger platforms. It's harder to do that. But no, Guns Down Friday, like their whole website, gunsdownfriday.com. They got an Instagram page, the Guns Down Friday DMV. But they do all these different, like, really great things. But like stuff like that, those are kind of organizations celebrities should get behind and fund and back, so that those organizations can grow their movements. Or I have a really good friend that has a nonprofit. I was talking about this on my book club. A friend that started a nonprofit that it has two goals. So this nonprofit is called Joyful Hands. Their website is, let me pull it up real quick. I think it's joyfulhands.org. Joyfulhands.org. I am correct. I think. Yes, I'm correct. So it's joyfulhands.org. And so they have two goals. So goal one, because they decided to look at things from a more global standpoint. So in the United States, their goal is to ensure that communities in need, the kids always receive school supplies. So every year they do this really big school backpack drive where it's like they give these kids loaded backpacks, and not just backpacks, but I mean, the backpacks have, you know, pencils, markers, papers, glue, scissors, rulers, COVID equipment, masks, hand sanitizers. For the girls, it has, you know, the girls' sanitary items that they're going to need. Sometimes it has deodorant and stuff for the boy, like all kind of stuff, maybe a t-shirt. And in addition to that, like they actually have an event on November 5th where it's going to be like an entire like health expo for a specific neighborhood, where they're going to have, you know, people getting free health screenings, dental screenings, like they're doing all this stuff. So that's the United States side, right? And then on top of that, on a global standpoint, they pretty much sponsor a school in Liberia because the school is not a free school in that specific area where the kids have to pay to go to school. And so their goal is to pay the tuition for the students so that they can finish their education. Because a lot of the kids, sadly, are like, 11, 12, 13 years old, but they're still in first grade, because if you don't have tuition, you can't go to school. And so, and she literally, like, they just built a whole library over there, and now like they're doing the same thing on this side. So I'm like, things like that. Those are the kind of things I wish celebrities would get behind, instead of trying to be the face of movements that they want to start because they're feeling their egos or they feel inflated, and now they want to be the voice of something last minute, right before the election, I guess. And don't get me wrong, there are some celebrities that do things behind the scenes, but I think we give too much to celebrities. I like celebrity entertainment. I like to laugh. I like to be entertained as well. But when it comes down to doing business, no celebrity is going to distort my view on anything, especially when I know if we get in a room together, I'm probably going to drag them in regards to whatever conversation it is, because half the time, like I said, they don't have the range for the conversation. All right. This has been a long live. We ain't even got to half the stuff on my paper. We're going to miss some stuff. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox tonight. This tea is so cold, but it's okay. It's iced tea now, unsweetened. All right. Marcellus World said, if people are interested in organizing, being a candidate or an operative, follow Tezlan Fiagro on all platforms. That's spelled TEZLYN FIGARO. Oh, Figaro. Not bad. She gives free training. She's pro-Black with plenty of receipts. Thank you for sharing that. Somebody say, gotta start somewhere. Daniel Nixon said, my grandmother always said, you never know, or my grandma would always say, you never know who you're going to need, which is very true. Like, again, I think you're going to have things collectively done for us. There's a system that works against us collectively. So why are we so pressed to be individuals all the time? You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that's kind of set some of us back, where everybody wants to be above the collective. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be more than. So it kind of even goes into conversation of the free thinkers, right? You got some people who want to feel that they are so much more enlightened than everybody else, and the rest of us are just stupid sheep and we don't know anything. So the hell with us 40 million, we're dumb because we all of a sudden don't want to align with white nationalists in order to get something politically, because we recognize once they get in office, we really aren't getting anything. But whatever. Yeah, I think collective work gets things done, right? This is why I really had a side eye to Shamik Moore that time, where he said Rosa Parks should have just took a cab. And I was like, I don't think you realize what you just said. You know, Rosa Parks, and I did a video on it, but understand, you're talking about Rosa Parks should have took a cab so that she wouldn't have had to deal with the nonsense. And then he was trying to say, oh, yeah, because what they didn't know, there were black-owned cab companies back then. Yeah, everything was segregated. There was black-owned everything. But to that point, recognize that by her being on the bus and, you know, refusing to get up and getting arrested, that helped to kick off a movement. Mind you, they already made the plan for her to do that. But just imagine if she said, okay, I'll get off, and she caught a cab. Who knows what would have happened in regards to the whole situation around the bus boycott and everything else like that. It may not have had the same success. Recognize, in order for a collective to thrive, you have to think of the collective and not just yourself. The idea of her getting in the cab and saying the hell with it is a very individualistic thing to do. And that's one of the problems we have today, is I think the conversation of social media and celebrity and the idea of prosperity through what we think other people have has created a space where everybody wants to be an individual by any means necessary. I do think you can still be an individual with how you do things, but recognize that when you are a part of a community that has been forced to operate as a community, because anti-blackness, again, is systemic, and whether or not you want to acknowledge that it exists, you will still fall under it. Recognize that as a collective, you just get more done than trying to be an individual. Which is why I think you see a lot of these different movements that are coming up, where people are trying to say, okay, well, this is what we think, or this is what we think. And so you've seen all these movements start to pop up, and they're trying to find ways to get people to come in there. So, you know, it is what it is. Okay, I think I'm going to pause on all this heavy talk because we've covered a lot. I always like to end on a good note. You know what I mean? I don't want us to end on such a sour note tonight. Y'all have had some really great comments in here, by the way. I know I can't get them all, but please note, I do see every comment on the live. Sometimes I'll go back and actually rewatch my live to see what I could have done better. And I'll actually read every comment that's in the live replay. So I actually do see all those comments. All right. Joe Biden sitting down to talk to Cardi B was utterly ridiculous. Like, stuff like that. Like, I get the celebrity bit, but it goes back to, again, like, Cardi B doesn't speak for me. Cardi B doesn't even come from the same experience that I come from. Like, is Cardi B even black? Like, you know what I mean? And the thing is, like, celebrities, I get it. I get it. The way to pull in the youth vote and the younger audience demographic is to appear to be in the know of what young people want culturally. But celebrities can't be the only outlet. I'm not saying don't work with celebrities. You can do what you got to do. But at the same time, you need to have people in the room that get the work done, that have been doing it, that know the language, that know the case law. You know, get some of these young lawyers that have been doing all these civil rights cases. They can tell you about a whole bunch of nonsense. You know, get people who have been on the receiving end of some of the nonsense, who've been on the receiving end where their businesses were discriminated against. Get some of these people who did not qualify for the PPP loans because all the rich folks took them all. You know what I mean? And they had to figure out how to do things. You know, like, get some of them people to speak. Get some real folks out there. Y'all, celebrity this, celebrity that. You know what I mean? Like, no. Jay-Z can't tell me anything. You know, even a certain celebrity who I said I would never speak on again, you know, I said that whole bit about if you broke, you can't tell me anything or whatever, but then want to speak for the whole collective. But then again, everything that you put out there is something chaotic. Like, no. And now that things are funny, the money's funny, here come the apologies. All right. It's your world. We just living in it. Okay. Oh, Cardi is black? Okay. I don't follow her enough to know her whole background, but okay. Y'all got it. I'm not that pressed. Okay, so a few other things. Let's see. Did I get everything over? Because I covered a lot on that. Yeah, I got like 11 pages. I got like all of this we done went through today, so we did good tonight. Let me see. Somebody asked me. Oh, the poll watchers. That nonsense. That's what I skipped. So I don't know if you've seen, even coming out of Arizona, this goes back to what we said about not tapping out right now because the nonsense is happening. You just saw that there was a judge that decided in the state of Arizona, because one of the things that's happening after the 2020 election, they keep wanting to push this narrative that there's all this voter fraud and millions of Americans illegally voted because they want to screw over the election, all this other stuff, right? And so now you have these people who are enraged, specifically a lot of white men and even the women too, who are showing up at different polling stations with weapons, talking about their monitoring. And so in the state of Arizona, a judge recently ruled that it's okay for them to stand there because telling them that they couldn't stand there with guns to intimidate people would go against their First Amendment right. Now, I wonder where that judge came from. Well, that judge was appointed by POTUS number 45. All right. That was Trump's appointee. So understand, when I say things get cemented in, things get cemented in. And so recognize there's going to be some people who are a little nervous and they're going to decide not to show up at the polls because they're going to be like, this is too much. This isn't my thing. And again, when it comes to the United States and guns, people have no problem shooting up everything. So I wouldn't put it past folks either. Like, no, folks are going to be, feeling some kind of way. But again, here comes that voter intimidation. And again, remember how I said things work full circle? Had Clarence Thomas not broken his neck to join the other justices in gutting the Voting Rights Act, we wouldn't have had to worry about people showing up to polling stations with weapons, because at that point in time, it was illegal to do that before they changed Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. So again, when you have people getting to positions of power and they undo things and seam rip things and try to put a place of permanence on newer things, this is what happens. This is why I keep freaking saying, stop trying to tap out. I keep seeing too many people saying, I'm done. I'm just going to do me. Okay. Do you? We're going to see. We're going to see how well that goes. All right. And so, man, it's just that's some crazy stuff. Like, imagine you trying to vote and they showing up talking, you walking in to go vote, somebody standing next to you with an AR-15, and you know who they're targeting. You know who all of these people are for. And you have all these stupid people in office talking about, yeah, we need to just really back the poll watchers. Understand that idea of vigilanteism is not a good thing in the United States, because Americans are trigger happy. They want to shoot everybody for everything anyway. So like, no, you're stirring up and gassing up people to go up and stir stuff. That's how we got Kyle Rittenhouse, who felt like, oh, I need to go all the way to Kenosha and protect property in a state that I don't live in, because, those poor rioters, they're going to go, not poor rioters, but those violent rioters are going to go and do damage, and watch him go and kill 2 people, right? And then get off and be painted as a hero. And now you can't even say nothing about him because he want to sue everybody. He's suing CNN. He's suing The View. He's suing Whoopi Goldberg. All these people who called him a murderer, which he is. That's where we're at. Privilege in its finest. So again, this is where we're at. So y'all keep tapping out. Understand there are going to be consequences with each election. Again, nothing changes just because, an election is over with. It's always going to be some nonsense. And please understand, I'm not somebody who feels that the world stops and ends with voting. That's just one piece of the pie. But at least when you have somebody in office that you may have some leverage with, it helps you get a little bit further in the door with what it is that you want. But if you don't have anybody there to represent anything that you want, then what's the end goal? You know what I mean? Like, y'all people talking about, I'm not doing this because I'm going to teach this group a lesson. I'm going to teach that group a lesson. Ain't no lessons to be learned on there, and they're going to find a way to get what they want anyway. So, while you sitting here teaching lessons, white Americans still getting everything they want. But, okay. That's y'all. Do you. You got it. All right. What else did I want to cover? Also, folks in Iowa, pay attention to your election. Y'all have some really questionable candidates running right now. There's a woman, I forgot her name, that I think y'all should really get behind. But yeah, people in Iowa, if you in there, y'all got some really questionable candidates. So please pay attention to the people that are running and what their platforms are. That's for everybody. Really pay attention to what the platforms are. You know what I mean? In regards to who's running for what. Because there's a lot of folks out there that some of them don't even have platforms. Some of their stuff is all about fear mongering or kind of playing into this game that we have where, again, like I said, a lot of people in white America are latching on to this whole idea of replacement theory, and we need to have a civil war, and there's an attack on straight white men and all these other different things, and we're losing America. And so people are no longer focusing on the actual issues, the things that actually matter in regards to infrastructure, healthcare, education, housing, jobs, even a conversation of inflation. People are like, yeah, I'm tired. I guess the inflation is out of control. And I'm like, please look at the bigger picture of what's happening with inflation. It's global. We just came out, well, we're still in it, but we're at, God willing, the tail end of a global pandemic, right? And there's also a war that's taking place that affects the supply chain line. Right. And in addition to that, there's all these different things that are taking place all around the world. Like the inflation that we're seeing is not even as bad as some of these other places. Some places have an inflation rate of almost 20%. Ours is 8%. All right. And even with the gas prices, people like the gas is high. Yes, gas is some BS right now, but it could be a whole lot worse if we live in some of these other places. Some other places are paying $6, $7, $8, $9 a gallon and have been even before 2020. So I think people need to really go and really dig and look at the policy. When you're looking at whatever candidate you decide to get behind, it can't just be about because you like them or because they're cool or they know how to really give it to the media. You know, they really know how to shove it in your face. I need to know like what it is that you actually do. What's the platform? The platform can't be I'm not the other guy or we're not the other guy. That can't be a platform for somebody to get behind. And that's also one of the criticisms I had with Democrats too. Right now, it's like I think y'all really did a crappy job of marketing what it is that you all did well, sadly, because y'all know I've been frying them up all year. But to be honest, like the last few months, I was like they finally were starting to get things done. Like you saw the Build Back Better bit happen. I was like, okay, good. That's already implemented. You're starting to see bridges and stuff get rebuilt. Kamala, I don't know why they keep her hidden in the trenches somewhere, but you know, she was the one spearheading the whole thing in regards to the pipes and replacing the pipes. Like something like a place like Flint, their issue is, God willing, almost going to finally be taken care of. Like, and it's not just with Flint, but like there's all these different things that they have done, but they just, for some reason, I don't know why they didn't talk about it. But the other side, you know, they latching and dragging the mess out of them. And so, you know, we'll see where this election goes. But yeah, look at the policy. What is the end goal? And how does that policy affect us in 10 and 20 years? That's really what people have to look at. It's not just about, you know, how a politician makes you feel. Anyway. Oh, y'all over here still arguing about Cardi. I'm past that. So yeah, honestly, look at your ballot and look at every single candidate and really like Google what they stand for. And if they're running for re-election, go back and look at what it is they voted yes on or voted no on. Where do they stand on certain things? And, you know, for me as Black folks, I want to be like, where do they stand on reparations? But in reality, ain't none of them stand on anything. They're all afraid to talk about it. So that kind of pisses me off. But that's that. Okay, anyway. On to some happier news. Let me see. Soul Train Awards. Hopefully I get to see it. I don't know if I'll be home in time, but I see that Escape is getting like a Lifetime Achievement Award. So good for them. Escape is really interesting because I really didn't get into them until I was an adult. Like I remember them when I was a kid. Like I remember a few songs like Keep On Keeping On with MC Light, Can't Hang. I never cared for Understanding, but it was cool for what it was. You know, a few songs like that. Feel So Good. Secret was my favorite song they had, You're My Little Secret. But then I saw them in concert in 2017, and it was so good. Like, it was so good. I was not ready. Like, y'all be laughing at Candy's voice, but even Candy sounded good. Like, they was such a great show. They were amazing, phenomenal. And I was like, all right, give them their flowers. I missed out for real. That's a really dope group. They were also really fun to watch on Versus when Versus wasn't tripping. You know, Escape, SWV, those are like two groups I really got into lately. Like I really like SWV as well. Which leads me into my next segment. Somebody was asking me, what do I think are the best remakes in music? And I think that's a hard question because there's so many really, really good ones. Man, I don't know. I have a lot. Speaking of SWV, I really like, they have two remakes that I liked. I thought they did an amazing job with Patti LaBelle's If Only You Knew. Coco's voice is God sent. But they also have a really good cover of Switch. Switch's There'll Never Be. Like, that's already a really dope song. Remember Switch? That was the older brother that was in the DeBarge family that started the group, or not started the DeBarge group, but started his group Switch. And then the DeBarges came later down the line. But their version of There'll Never Be is so good. I even like the version they performed on New York Undercover. That's a dope one. What else? I like... Oh, I told y'all, one of my favorite songs is Brothers Johnson, I'll Be Good to You. But I even like the remake with Quincy Jones, Ray Charles, and Chaka Khan. But to be fair, Quincy Jones produced both versions, so maybe that's why. I like Tevin Campbell's Strawberry Letter. I like his version. But not the one that's on the streaming services. I can't stand that one. I like the one that's on the original print of the album, the New Jack Swing version. That was a really good, great remix or remake. I like... Oh, Whitney Houston. Her version of I'm Every Woman is a good one. Pretty much all the Whitney remakes. Any song she took, she ran with. Luther, all of his remakes. I mean, Since I Lost My Baby, like much love to the Temptations, but like Luther killed that. Let me see. We'd be here all day. I don't know if there's like a greatest one. I don't know what I would consider the greatest one because a lot of them are really good. Even in modern times, I like the Lady Marmalade version, like Christina and Lil Kim and all of them. I thought that was dope when it dropped. trying to think of something I haven't thought of. Like, what's a really good... Oh, one of my favorites is Kenny Lattimore and Shantae Moore's rendition of "Here We Go" from Minnie Riperton. That is a good listen there. Go back and play that one. That's one of my favorite remixes. I wish they would have... Well, actually, she just got married, so I can't say I wish she would have made it with Kenny, but she's happy with the new husband. But that's a really great remix. They sound amazing on that. Mary J. What? I know she got some remix in here. Oh, I'm Going Down. Well, I'm tripping. I'm Going Down. She got some other ones. What else did she remade a few songs? What am I skipping? Oh, I do like Her Sweet Thing, but I'm sorry, nothing will ever compare to Rufus. She also redid You Make Me Feel, or Natural Woman. Somebody said, oh, they like Silk Sonic's version of Confunction's Love's Train. I liked it. The only thing, I was already biased against it only because I remember my dad playing the original version so much. It was hard for me to get into a new version. Like that song, he used to play that all the time. The Gap Band, what's the song? Can't keep running in and out of my life. What song is it? Dun, dun, dun. What is that song called? Oh my God, why don't I know that? Hold on, y'all know what I'm talking about. Gap Band. What is that called? Dang, man. Oh, Yearning for Your Love. There we go. That's what it's called. Yearning for Your Love. He used to play that all the time. I can't think of the artist, but there was a song called Treat Her Like a Lady. You got to treat her like a lady. Not the Temptations one, but there's another one. It was like, I want to say it's from the 60s. He's always played that. So there's certain songs where, or Free to Pain, Band of Gold. So there's some songs that I just don't want to ever hear remade because I only want to hear the original. We used to hear those in the in the road trips we used to go on. Let me see. What else? Oh, okay, back to remakes. What else do I like that was really good? Trying to think. We'll be here all day because I could talk music with y'all all night. Y'all know I will. I have no problem doing it. People don't like it. I even like Janet's remake of Tonight's the Night from Rod Stewart. I even like that version. The guy that has the radio show Carrie's Corner, he was like, I didn't like it. I was like, I liked it when I was on the show. He was like, no, I didn't like it. I was like, really? I like that version. Maxwell, This Woman's Work. That's a good one. Yeah. I don't even know how you remember that one, Burley 09. Endless Love by Eddie and Gerald Levert, Patti LaBelle, and Tanya Blunt. That's a dope one. Tanya Blunt, I think, actually lives out here in DC. I think. I think she lives out here. Let me see what else. You know what's interesting though? There's some songs that some people are afraid to touch. Like they just won't touch them. I'm like, that's very decent. There's some songs you just be scared to go after. A lot of people don't really touch any of Teddy Pendergrass's songs. Now, I will say Shantae Moore and Kenny Lattimore do have a version of Close the Door that's nice, but it's nice, but it's not like Teddy's. Teddy just had this whole way of doing things. My godmom loves Teddy. And I remember one time, sometimes I go to her house and we'll just play like concert clips on YouTube on the TV all day. But when she puts on her Teddy, you can't tell her nothing. And she just said what she always loved about Teddy Pendergrass is like, it's almost like he's having a conversation with you while he's singing the song. It's just so smooth in here, and the band is real smooth. And he was really into presentation. Luther was into that as well, where all the all the backing vocalists are gonna look a certain way and have a certain essence. The band, everybody's gonna be in suits and tuxedos and everything like that. And so yeah, there's certain folks that just they just always had it. Joe, in my opinion, is one of those artists as well. He should have had a bigger career. Somebody said, how can I ease the pain is never touched. Nobody's ever going to touch that Lisa Fisher song. They are not going to touch it. A lot of the Rachelle Farrell songs people are afraid to touch. Listen, if you ain't got the range, you ain't got the range. Escape, Who Can I Run To? Jones Girls. That's a really good one. That's actually, I might like that one more than the original. Don't fight me. Just saying. That's a really good one. I like Tisha Campbell and Tashina Arnold's remake of The Emotions, Don't Ask My Neighbor. That's a good one too. Yeah, those are good. Let me see. Is there anything else I skipped? We're gonna pretty much wind down because it's already midnight. We've been on here for almost 3 hours. Also, condolences to those who died sadly in the stampede over in South Korea. That was kind of scary to read about. Yeah, that was kind of crazy. Let Let's see. Oh, I didn't talk about Wakanda Forever. I'm excited. I got my ticket. I got me the 4D ticket. Like if you go see it, you have to see it in 4D if your theater has it. 4D is the theater where it's like you're really in there. It's almost like you're in the virtual reality machine. So like I saw the last Black Panther in 4D, like, and so the seat was moving while they were fighting. When they get punched, you're not getting punched, but like the back of your seat kind of pushes against your head. If there's an explosion, the room gets hot. Like if there's water, you feel like a mist. Like that was the best experience ever. So I got me a Wakanda Forever ticket at the 4D theater. So I'm excited to see the movie. The song, because somebody was asking me about Rihanna's song. I think when I see the movie, I'll understand it. I just wanted her to give me a good little turn up song. Now I get it. People are saying it's in honor of Chadwick Boseman, so it's in memory of song. So I totally get it. I think when you see the movie, I'm sure that song is gonna play during the saddest part of the movie. We're gonna all be in there crying, so the song will fit perfectly, and then I'll have a better appreciation for the song. But I do appreciate that it's something different as far as like a ballad, just as far as like something just ballad with instrumentation and melody, since everything is so programmed and trappish sometimes. I'm like, so that part I'll give her. So we'll see. But I'm excited for the movie. I'm excited to see how it turns out. I'm still sad about Chadwick Boseman. That was horrible, wasn't it? There was so much more he could have been able to do. And I mean, he already did a lot, but he really was on his way. Like he really had been doing. He had some really great movies. Like he was great in the Jackie Robinson movie. He was really great in the James Brown movie. He, of course, was good in Black Panther. He was great in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He was great in like literally every role he played. Like he definitely was one to watch. So that's such a sad loss. Man. All right. Let me read some comments here. No, I was not being shady because before y'all start trying to start a war with me over that song, I don't want to hear it. Somebody said, "How can I ease the range?" That's right. At least official. Actually, I knew one person that could nail that song. There was this girl Yolanda. I forgot her last name. We went to college together. And one time we were all at karaoke, and she tore that song up. And mind you, Yolanda at the time was maybe like 19 or 20. You would have thought Yolanda had been married and divorced twice the way she sang that song. I mean, everybody, and mind you, she was the last performance of the night. Like, 'cause this is when we were at Gladys Chicken and Waffles over in Largo before they closed it down. And they used to have karaoke on Thursdays or Friday. I don't know. Anyway, we had been there all night. We didn't held the place hostage. Now they're closing and they're finally ready to kick us out. But they let her get the last song in. I mean, there was nobody in there but us and the staff that was cleaning up. I mean, the people that were mopping and they all stopped to watch this girl sing that song. I don't know where Yolanda is, but good luck to you, Yolanda, wherever you're at. That girl tore that song up. Man, that girl could sing. She was in like the Howard Gospel Choir too. Oh, Prince, I feel for you. The Shaka Khan remake. I like the Shaka Khan version more than Prince's. That's a great one. Shaka killed that when I saw her live. Y'all be laughing at Shaka because every now and then she has them random performances that don't go as well. But when I saw her last year, Shaka tore that place down. And I was so irritated because the crowd was so bougie and dry. Like, it's Shaka Khan. Y'all supposed to be up and, she get all the, and when she gets to like, what you gonna do for me? And do you love what you feel? And all of those, you're supposed to have. Like me and my godmom was like killing it with me. And then there's these other people and they're just bougie. The little minks on sitting up there. I said, we are not at a Nat King Cole show. This is Shaka Khan. All right. I need y'all to have the same energy energy you would have if it was Ike and Tina. All right. But no, Shaka gave a great show. Let me see here. Oh, Darling Nikki, that's a great choice. Trina Broussard, Inside My Love. She has another song I really like called Am I Losing My Mind? I always thought that was a really great song. But yeah, she remade Inside My Love with Minnie Riperton. And Shantae Moore did one too. I'm gonna gas up Shantae tonight. Shantae Moore has a great rendition of Inside My Love as well. It has Tina Marie finally come to the realization that she's not black. Tina Marie ain't here no more. She's gone. I'm like, okay. I'm rest in peace. I don't think she's here anymore. Oh, somebody said we don't have that technology down here. The 4D thing is still pretty new. Like I only know of like 2 or 3 theaters around here that have it. I know the Theater and Gallery Place for those in DC has one for sure. That's the one I'd be going to sometimes. That theater be off the chain sometimes. But okay, I'm one of those people that I love to go see a movie when the whole theater is black. That is the funnest experience, especially if the movie's not good. Because black folks gonna talk back to the screen. I'll never forget. We were in college and we saw, was it college? We saw Medea Goes to Jail. Don't ask. Listen, I went to support. But there's a scene in the movie where the guy that was Keisha Knight Podium's friend starts telling the story about what happened because she had been assaulted. And so out of nowhere, he just starts randomly crying. But the crying, you could just tell that it just came out of nowhere and that they shot the little thing in his eyes. And so the whole theater, right when it happened, was like, oh. It was so funny. I was like, dang. And then when I saw The Orphan, the whole theater was black. Everybody was talking back to that screen. It was the scene where at the end, well, it's towards the end. You've seen The Orphan, if you haven't, but it's about this movie where they adopt a little girl and she ended up really being half crazy and tried to kill everybody. And really, she wasn't even a little girl; she was an adult, and they didn't know until the end. But the little girl had broke her arm on purpose. Like she put it in a little machine thing and cracked the bone, and she was trying to frame the mom because the girl's aim was to fall in love with the dad. Right now, mind you, this was a real adult, not a girl. All right. So anyway, there's a part where the dad confronts the wife. He's like, "You broke her arm. I think you should sleep on the couch tonight." And like the whole theater was like, "What? Oh, hell no." Like it was the funniest thing. And then after all of that, towards the end of the movie, the little girl ended up killing the dad because he didn't want her. So she stab. And then later on, the wife comes to the house because at this point, the little girl, the adult, she done lost her mind. She done cut the power off in the house. One of the kids is in the hospital because she done put him in he was in a tree house. She set it on fire and then he almost died. And then he was in the hospital and she tried to suffocate him, but he came back to life. So he's already in like the ICU. There's a little sister that's deaf that can't hear. And so she's lost somewhere in the house. And mind you, the girl or the woman already killed the dad. The mom finally gets to the house. She's ready to fight. Throw it out. She's ready. And she's trying to find the little girl, but then she sees the husband laying dead on the floor. So she forgets that she got the daughter in harm's way. She starts crying over the husband. Oh my God. Mind you, the husband done treated her terribly the last month of the movie. She done had to sleep on the couch. He done called her an alcoholic. Him and the therapist that turned on her. Like she was going through it. And so I'm like, why are you sitting here crying over this man? Go find your daughter that might still be alive while you worried about this man that just made you sleep on the couch. Like, get out of here. So yeah, everybody was going off in the theater. Like, there's nothing like seeing a movie with a bunch of black folks. It's the funniest thing because it's like one big giant conversation. It's like that time I told you when me and one of my friends went to Essence and like we had flew Southwest and the entire plane was going to Essence. So it was one big conversation on the flight, which was like the coolest thing ever. Like everybody, like my whole section, it was like 20 of us just having a group conversation, laughing about who we was going to see. And everybody, it was the dopest thing. I love me some black people. Anyway, somebody said gowns. Great. I didn't say it. Y'all did. Gowns. Beautiful gowns. Great gowns. I didn't say it. The song is apparently number one. Somebody asked me, am I going to see Till? That's the movie about Emmett Till. I've been planning to see it. At first, I wasn't going to, but I think I do want to kind of see the film mainly just because I want to hear the mother's perspective of everything that happened. So I'll probably check it out when I have a free minute this week, if I have a free minute. Let's see. The drummer of the punk band, the Dead Kennedys and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, D.H. Peligro, Black American, just died the other day. Wow, rest in peace. I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know about that. Oh, speaking of Marvin Gaye, Tangy2936 said they like Marvin Gaye's version of Yesterday by the Beatles is the best. I like Aretha Franklin's version of Marvin Gaye's Holy Holy. That is a good listen. Oh, that sounds so good. That's a good one. That one, Aretha, I get sad when I think of all of the legends that unfortunately have to pass on because we all are only here for a certain amount of time and then we move on. Aretha, man, she has so much music. It's sometimes hard to appreciate everything she was able to contribute to music. And I don't think sometimes we appreciate her enough. But man, that's a great remake. And I told you, I even like her remake of Skylark as well. That's a beautiful remake as well. That's one of my favorite songs in general is Aretha Franklin's version of Skylark. It's a great one. Somebody said, was it a Magic Johnson Theater? No, not that one. Not the one I was at. But there is a Magic Johnson Theater. I think in Largo, Maryland. Yeah. But now my stomach growling, and it's too late to eat. I ain't eating nothing else tonight. That's it. I gotta go back to the gym. I kind of fell off for the last 2 months because I've just been so busy. Somebody said, "Wait, what movie is this?" Oh, I was talking about The Orphan, not the new one. I know there's the second one that came out. I still didn't even finish it after all that trash I talked. I hadn't even watched it yet. Hey, Bibby said we're bubble wrapping Shaka and Stevie. Keep them protected at all costs. Oh God, I don't even want to imagine the days when some of these people got to pass. I'm gonna have to take a day off of work, and I'd be working from home. Like, man, oh, I don't even want to imagine that. Oh Lord, y'all gonna have to get me off the respirator when Janet's time comes. I'm gonna be done. All right. Somebody said Michael Jackson's version of Come Together is better than the Beatles. I even like the Ike and Tina version as well. The Beatles, I was never into them like that. They okay. They got a few songs I liked. I liked In My Life. I thought that was a great song. They got a few songs, but I was never into them. I know they get a lot of accolades, I guess. Too many legends. Oh, okay. Do I have anything else before we call it a night? This was a really great live, y'all. And I was nervous because I didn't think I was going to be prepared enough for this one. That's why I was 5-6 minutes late coming on here. Oh, well, for those who play the lottery, nobody won that $1 billion lotto. So it's almost $1 billion. So everybody, let's all play. I'm going to have to play the lottery. I know it's like the chances are slim to none, but look, let me go ahead and play a little bit. Like, man. Let's see. Yeah, I covered everything, so we did good. Yeah, I know I wasn't crazy. Yeah, they say it's been 10 years since Tina Marie passed. Yeah, I was about to say Tina been gone for a minute. Like, yeah, I like Tina. I used to like It Must Be Magic and Behind the Groove. And of course, everybody likes Square Biz. I even like the album she had in 04 with the I'm Still Loving You. Tina was all right with me because Tina knew her lane. Tina wasn't trying to replace nobody. Like, Tina had her. I think she just came from a space where Tina's success was not going to impede on other Black artists because, again, white America did not pay attention to Tina Marie. Like, she didn't get the luxury to cross over and then do all the Black soulful music and pass it off as pop. White audiences ignored her. And so she was actually down with us for that moment. So Tina was always all right with me. It's when folks get into our spaces and climb up and then ditch us and then take over everything and then act like they didn't have any help getting there. That's when I be feeling some kind of way. All I do is think of you by Troop, the Jackson 5 remake. I did like that one. You know what? I didn't like the B5 remake. Remember that group B5? I like their song You Got Me, but I didn't care for their version of All I Do at all. I might have just been a hater, but I think I'm older than them, so we were peers. I think we were peers. So I might have just been a hater, but I wasn't too crazy over that version. It was still decent. I just didn't care for it. Oh, I like In Vogue's the What Can I Do With This Feeling from Sparkle that Aretha had. Their version, theirs is on Funky Divas. That's a good one. I like that. Somebody said, or Bill Pinchon said, I terribly miss Sarah Vaughan and Aretha, Whitney, Billy, Etta. All like the thing that's missing, in my opinion, is the distinction in voices in music. That's what made some of those earlier eras so great. Is these artists had a distinctive voice that stood out. Like when you heard Etta James, you knew it was Etta. You weren't gonna mistake her to be anybody else. When you heard Whitney, you knew right off the bat it was Whitney. Whether she was belting or singing in a really light angelic tone, you knew it was Whitney. You know, if it was Melba Moore, you knew it was Melba. Like no Patty, no Gladys, Natalie. You know, no questions asked. If it's the OJs don't get enough credit for just how freaking good they sing. That's one singing group. Like the OJs get it in that dang Stairway to Heaven. Man, like there's certain voices when you hear Eddie Levert, you just know. You know what I mean? there's just certain voices. Tina has a distinctive voice that just stands out. Like today, it's really hard. Like you hear a lot of singers, and because we put so much EQ and filters on a lot of the vocalists, you don't know who's who sometimes. I think there are some that stand out. To me, Jasmine Sullivan, I can recognize her voice from anywhere. Lucky Day, I can recognize his voice from anywhere. Tone Stiff, I can recognize. He's actually here, I think, soon for some show. I can recognize his voice. Tweet, you can always tell her voice from somebody's. Luke James, you know, he stands out. But as far as the people that they really push on radio, sorry, ain't nobody here. Sorry, microphone. I'm saying sorry because y'all probably hear me bumping. I'm so used to being in the subway bumping into people. It's just so hard to tell who's who sometimes, especially with the artists that get a lot of radio play. It is so hard. I'll hear one person and think it's this person. They're like, no, it ain't them. I'm like, oh, okay, my bad. I got to Shazam everybody now to figure out who's who. And I'm so embarrassed. I'm one of those people who like feel embarrassed to use Shazam in public. Like if I'm in the store and I hear a song, I'll have the Shazam one. I'll try to keep it all low because I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to know this song already. And I'll be looking, I'm like, oh, okay, this is so-and-so. Oh, okay. But anyway. Wait, what? Hold on. Incognito Neighbors Calvin. They got the scammer scamming Morrison as intro to your video. I don't know. Of all people, this is intentional as you're talking to 4 black people. Oh, is that the advertisement? It must be the advertisement you're talking about. I'm not sure what that's about. Oh, Toni Braxton. I forgot her. That's some distinction right there. Somebody said Tony and Brandy. Let me see. I hear my neighbors outside arguing. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. Dang, where I was reading a comment and my thing scrolled. I'll come back to it. I'll find it. It's okay. Of course, we talked about Luther. Kelly Price, As We Lay is a great one. Thank you for that one. I forgot about how good that one was. We were all in like middle school singing down as if we were sleeping with somebody else's spouse. And I even like the Shirley Murdoch version, to be honest. Shirley Murdoch is underrated too. People don't realize she's on a lot of those Zapp and Roger songs. So like when you hear is that her on Computer Love? I know she's on Slow and Easy, like Slow and Easy is the way I want to love you tonight. She's on that song, and she's on Computer Love, but people didn't realize she was singing for them. Nina Simone's another great one. Oh, that's true. Avocado Queen said, Tweet, Taxi is my favorite song by her. Beautiful harmonies. Oh, Tweet is so good. I just saw her live. Me and a friend, we just saw her maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. She was at the Bethesda Jazz and Blues Supper Club, that place. Really great show. Like Tweet, that's the second time I've seen her. She's one of my favorites. I love her. My favorite song by Tweet is Beautiful and The Hardest Thing. And I want to say Two of Us, I think. She has some really great melodies. I just love how soothing her tone is. There's some people who are really able to just translate music really well without a whole lot of production. She's one of those people. Like she can literally just have 2 or 3 instruments. Oh, Smoking Cigarettes is another one too. Like 2 or 3 instruments, maybe just like a guitar, a kick drum, and I don't know, a freaking banjo or something. And she'll just have the most beautiful arrangements, beautiful songs. Anthony Hamilton, I think, can do that as well. All right. Yeah, her daughter sings on The Two of Us. That's a good one. Stephanie Mills. Yeah, Stephanie Mills is a legend. I really liked her energy on verses. She did us a favor by having Shaka's back when Shaka was dealing with whatever Shaka was dealing with that night. So that was really dope. But no, Stephanie Mills has some great ones. I Feel Good, All Over, Putting a Rush on Me. Her version of Feel the Fire is my favorite. You know, there's 3 versions. There's the Peebo Bryson version. One of my friends is like, that's the better version. I'm like, whatever. So Peebo Bryson has his version. Then there's the Stephanie Mills and Teddy Pendergrass version of Feel the Fire. That one's cool, but it's something about Stephanie by herself and her version. That one, she tore that song up. Tore that song down. So yeah, Feel the Fire. I'm skipping someone. She got a lot. What else does she have? Stephanie. Oh, Put Your Body to It. Put Your Body in It. That's a fun one. Of course, her version of Home is great. Stephanie has some really great classics. Something in the way you make me feel. That's the one I was thinking of. All right. Somebody said, oh, never mind. Okay. Oh yeah, Ribbon in the Sky by Intro, originally by Stevie Wonder. That was okay. I like that one. That one, it sounds a bit 90s to me, but I did like that one. Monica's voice is unique as well. I like her remake of SOS Band, Tell Me If You Still Care. That's a great one. Thank you, Carl Kyrie. Yeah, it was Computer Love. That Shirley Murdoch is also on. And with Charlie Wilson. Charlie Wilson's another one with one of those distinctive tones. Oh, you know what? Jonathan Cooper. Neither One of Us. By Gladys Knight, Monifa, and damn, I keep hitting this microphone. Montel Jordan. Another version of Neither One of Us that's really, really good is Jennifer Hudson. It was when she was still on American Idol. You know, remember when American Idol used to release the albums of the different artists that were on there? She has an amazing version of Neither One of Us. That's a good one there. Great one. We could talk music all night, but I need to go to bed, y'all. I'm not Gunica. I'm not dealing with y'all. Roberta Flack. I love Roberta. My favorite Roberta song, Feel Like Making Love. I also like It Might Be You. I like all the stuff she had with Donny Hathaway. I used to really love You Are My Heaven. That's a great one. You are my love. How does that go? You are my heaven. Mm-mm-mm. That's a really good one. Where is the Love, of course. Oh, Back Together Again. I like that one. They had some good little gems together. That was a good group or a duo when they were working together. Sade has her own unique tone. Phyllis Hyman, of course. Y'all know Phyllis is one of my favorites. I would love for her to get a documentary at some point. Favorite Phyllis songs. When you get right down to it, off the Problem of My Life album is probably my favorite Phyllis song. But I also love Old Friend. I love every performance of Old Friend. I like Living All Alone, Living in Confusion. I Refuse to Be Lonely. You Know How to Love Me. I like her remake of it's a Bobby Caldwell song, What You Won't Do for Love. I like her version of that. Like she gets it in. Sade, of course, that's one of my favorite bands. But as far as Sade, the actual singer, like Kiss of Life is a favorite. Nothing Can Come Between Us is probably my favorite song by them. And I also like Paradise. I like even on Soldier of Love, I really loved Skin, the song. And there's another one on there. Be That Easy. I used to love that song. And Baby, is it Baby Father? Baby Father. I used to like that one. Man, actually, I don't think there's a Sade song I don't like. I'm trying to think what that song is called. Lovers Rock is a great one. We'll Be Here All Day. It's No Crime. Or Is It a Crime? Keep Looking. Oh, I'll be here with the Sade stuff all night. That's one of my favorites. Sam Cooke has some great ones. Okay, it's Marvin Gaye, Bobby Womack. Yeah, those are some distinctive voices. Anita Baker, of course. Still pissed I have not seen her yet. Man. All right. Anyway, this has been really great. Thank y'all for hanging with me for 3 hours and 6 minutes. We was on here for a good minute. Thank you for those who have donated and supported to the short film that we're shooting, the Indiegogo campaign. Like I said, it is going to be up, I think, for 3 more days. So if you feel like donating, the link is in the description. And thank you to those who donated tonight. Thank you guys for great conversation. We had some really great comments tonight. I didn't get to everything just because I kept rambling. I'll try to do a better job of reading the comments next time. But yeah, like I said, I announced I was supposed to put it out this week, but I didn't get a chance to, so we'll do it. Last week. So we're going to do it this week as far as a new podcast episode, because we have not uploaded one, I think, since January. But like I said, this new series is all about my work with the children. And boy, I got some stories for y'all. Anyway, that's all I got. Good night. See you guys later.